I remember Loki
Yeah.
was there like, okay, we got
That was
this
them.
working at least.
That was their
And then
most
it's like, oh
successful one.
no.
But it's
And
it's
it's
a
weird thinking about it, considering it was one of the earliest ones. It was their
yes,
like second show or something
their
like that.
third show. Their third show.
What were the ones before Loki? What truly
WandaVision
were the first?
and Falcon and Winter Soldier
Hmm.
were the first
Oh
two.
yeah, well
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's where all the goodwill started to drain hardcore with all of
Yes.
that.
Well, even we were kind of like the first couple episodes of WandaVision. We were like, hey, all right, this is something.
Mm,
Then
yeah.
it went to shit.
Oh yeah.
But at
All
least
right.
it took a couple episodes.
Oh yeah. And that's where I mean everything's falling apart kind of. So we're going to talk about all those different ways that it's happening, and then look at how it may have happened. And it's kind of stuff we've talked about over the years, but now it's like an episode focusing on it. So we'll get started with this article. The context is what did you say it was described as? Like their monthly cover
I think it's a
article,
cover story. Yeah.
right?
Variety's
It was a big
monthly
deal.
cover story. All right. Yeah, I mean everyone knows Variety. Variety's a big deal.
And so, well, I guess we'll just read it. Like I said, we'll go paragraph by paragraph, I suppose. This past September, a group of Marvel creatives, including studio chief Kevin Feige, assembled in Palm Springs for the studio's annual retreat. Most years, the vibe would have been confident, even cocky, given how the premier superhero brand, owned by Disney since 2009, has remade the entertainment business in its image. That's all fair and true. They would be pretty damn cocky, especially when they were fledgling when they started on with Iron Man, right? It's like you're in danger of all of it collapsing. They built it all up, only to now be at a different position, relatively speaking. It's I guess to make it easier to remember, if Rags goes next, we're just going left to right, repeat.
All right, let's see. Let me. Sorry, I was wrapping something up. But this occasion, I'm starting there right.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, I'm just making sure. Want to make sure all my ducks are in a row. But this occasion was angst-ridden. I like that, angst-ridden. Everyone at Marvel was reeling from a series of disappointments on screen, a legal scandal involving one of its biggest stars, and questions about the viability of the studio's ambitious strategy to extend the brand beyond movies into streaming.
Out of curiosity, legal scandal involving one of its biggest stars. Are they talking about Jonathan Majors? I thought for a second they might have been talking about the scandal with Scarlett Johansson back with Black Widow.
Possibly, but I feel like because she wasn't poised to be like the new big villain of the next arc, and they were kind of done with her.
Oh, I
sort of?
that's true. It's just that because they said reeling from a series of disappointments on screen, which is like, yeah, that's probably going all the way past Endgame, right? Anything past then, really. Not including stuff like No Way Home, I guess Guardians 3.
Well, the thing you got to remember is No Way Home, like Spider-Man, is Sony. It is like a Marvel Studios thing, kind of, but it is majority Sony.
Well, it's worth mentioning every time almost, because when I say Phase 4 and 5, people will be like, well, No Way Home's in there. And it's like, no, yeah, I know, but...
but No Way Home's not part of the... Because it's not No Way Home, obviously Across the Spider-Verse isn't part of the conversation, because that was actually successful. Yeah.
So when we talk about like money, profit regarding that movie, who makes the most?
Columbia pays most of the bills and gets most of the money. That's kind of like the nature of the agreement. Remember, there was a time when it was kind of like on ice and they weren't sure what to do because I think Marvel wanted to negotiate to spend more money but obviously make more money. But Sony didn't want to. The thing you got to remember is Sony owns the rights to like Spider-Man films. And that anything that happens between them and Marvel is like cooperation, but ultimately it's still theirs. They still have it.
Okay.
So yeah.
You may continue, Rags.
All right. Where did that tab go? Oh, here it is. Sorry, sometimes I forget. The most pressing issue to be discussed at the retreat was what to do about Jonathan Majors, the actor who had been poised to carry the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but instead is headed to a high-profile trial in New York later this month on domestic violence charges. The actor insists he is the victim, but the damage to his reputation and the chance he could lose the case has forced Marvel to reconsider its plans to center the next phase of its interlocking slate of sequels, spin-offs, and series around Major's villainous character, Kang the Conqueror.
one of the things I was thinking about this is if you split it all up into individual characters, events, locations, and maybe even, let's say, movies, what is like the hardest thing to change in terms of a single element or item of the MCU? And it might actually have been Jonathan Majors as Kang, because take anyone else. If it was like, let's say Brie Larson killed a bunch of people, they'd be like, well, she's written out. Bye. You know what I mean? Like, as much as it's difficult to square
Yeah,
away
she
the
just doesn't
movie
show
she's
up in
just
the next
done.
movie.
But yeah,
It's
what
all
a,
the other heroes.
problem
They
is
can
it
pick
gets
up
a
the
little-
slack.
It gets a little bit awkward when your film is called The Kang Dynasty, you know?
Does what I mean? Like they've done, he did it. Well, rather, this event happened right when they had like been like, "Here he is," and then they were like, "Oh
yeah, pretty much. I
shit!"
mean, that was like the main thrust for Quantumania was Kang. Yeah, look at Kang. Look at Kang. Look at Jonathan Majors as Kang specifically.
Yeah,
Isn't
they
he a
were really
great
big on
actor
that.
as Kang? And then this happens. And it's like they're right in the middle, right? If it happened a couple of years earlier, they could have changed their mind. If it happened a couple of years later, it'd be over. It's like the worst possible timing.
And yeah,
Yeah,
to make what I'm saying a little bit
it's like,
more understandable, right? The idea of they wouldn't just drop in anyone is not easy. Like, and there's levels of difficulty, but it just feels like he's one of the hardest ones to detach from the MCU. They just injected him everywhere.
yeah, they played him up really big, and he's supposed to be
guess
this
the,
overarching kind of thread between multiple films as the villain. He's the
The-
new Thanos.
I suppose the thing is that because of the multiverse, if they played it more like Spider-Man had it, where the Spider-Man were played by different people, you could just easily be like, yeah, it's a different Kang, and that's why he's played by a different person.
Also,
But like for whatever reason, all of the Kangs that have been presented on screen have been played by him.
I hear a lot of people say this is fine and easy because you can easily recast Kang, and I'm always sitting there thinking, like, I mean, to an extent, you can recast anybody and do anything you want at all times because the writing's so fucking bad. But I mean, it's not. I feel like it's in stone that there's not multiple versions of Kang that look completely different. They all look like Jonathan Majors.
And then, of course, there's the fact that everybody would know the real reason. It's like everybody's kind of aware of the reason why that's happening.
And so, in a sense, it's easy to do for anything because they can just do it. Like in a corporate sense, they can just be like, "Well, we're switching you out. Bye." But I don't know. To me, I'm thinking of all the different elements and compare it like if Tom Holland, I don't know, went nuts and killed everybody, it'd just be like, well. New cast, new Spider-Man, and especially now is probably not too difficult. I mean, it's not good to lose Tom Holland as a draw, but at the same time, they can cast someone else for the college years of Spider-Man in the MCU, right? Or if they move it wherever.
They could.
Oh man, I mean,
it would be tough, but maybe
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I'm more confident about it. I feel like there's plenty of good actors, and I think people would be able to. People fucking love Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I
adore
think
Spider-Man.
I think it's the connection that people have with really liking Tom Holland as that particular Spider-Man.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
It would be like replacing Tobey Maguire after Spider-Man 2. I think there's a lot of... Yeah, I think...
No, yeah, that's the thing, though. There's difficulty with all of them. I just don't know that any of them represent any kind of impossibility, but this one was incredibly awkward.
Yeah,
the reason I chose Captain Marvel and Spider-Man as counterexamples is because they're like probably the equivalents if there were. Maybe not Captain Marvel compared to Spider-Man, but it's like, what about Chris Hemsworth as Thor? It's like, is that easily replaceable? It's like, nobody fucking cares about like Thor. I don't know, like what the hell's even going on there? It's like, I wonder how difficult that would be. I don't know. I think we'd all be.
I feel like that would be one of the more difficult ones.
Well, it would suck to get rid of him because he's probably the only draw left for a Thor story
right now. A lot
right
of people
now.
feel sorry for him. Right now, there's a lot of people who are very sympathetic towards him.
I would say so. I mean, he's a likable guy, and he's one of the few legacy actors who's still left.
And a legitimately talented actor, too.
He's quite talented. Oh, yeah.
But then we, past that, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange is one of the ones, I guess, that would be...
Yeah, he's one of the few
they wouldn't want to lose him, but... then we're into characters that, imagine they recast Cassie Lang. You'd be like, oh no.
No one gives a shit.
Oh geez, how could you do that? So, of their like 50 million new superheroes they've introduced, we could probably recast all of them, but the one that they've introduced recently-ish, at least Phase 4 and 5, being Jonathan Majors, it was awkward because he's like a fully integrated right when they now don't even know if they want him fully integrated, which is just, unfortunate for them. Alrighty, Fringy.
At the gathering in Palm Springs, executives discuss backup plans including pivoting to another comic book adversary like Doctor Doom. But making any shift would carry its own headaches. Majors was already a big presence in the MCU, including as the scene-stealing antagonist in February that was Quantumania.
Are you he stole all those scenes, Fringy. He stole them. That's why they didn't make any money, because Kang stole the scenes.
And he has been positioned as the franchise's next big thing in this season of Loki, particularly in the finale, which airs on October 9th, and sets up Kang as the star of the 5th Avengers film in 2026. Well, that's interesting because it means we've got a week to see if at least that portion of the article is just like ironclad.
Yeah.
I will say, again, bearing in mind, it's like, well, you know, this could not be true, but like, if they actually were sitting there like, oh, but we could pivot to Doctor Doom, it's like, this just speaks to how I feel like Marvel's doomed. I don't think they know. It's like, I don't think that they, I really don't know that Marvel actually knows what's wrong with their films.
I don't think they do either. No,
Yeah,
I don't think that Marvel has the capability of like, okay, let's get our checklist of things that we need to do to make a good movie. That checklist doesn't exist. That's a checklist for something else.
It's gone. I think it never just comes down to maybe like the writing sucks. It's always like a variety of other things. Like there are too many of these films. Oh yeah, the visual effects are pretty bad. Or
they've got to connect better.
CGI, it's the references, it's the diversity.
It seems like the shtick, because the trailer for Echo came out yesterday, or the day before that, and it seems like the shtick for that seems to be, see, it's mature, it's violent, and it's just, to me, that feels like, yeah, right, but like that doesn't mean anything to me.
The world's full of violent media. Like I don't, it's like you're not special.
I would actually, as part of our journy today, we might be watching that trailer on EFAP.
Yeah, we I haven't seen it. So.
I haven't seen it either.
I guess what I'm getting at is that because it felt like it was the same thing that happened with Secret Invasion, where they tried to pretend it was serious. And now you can see with the Marvels that the attitude, and I imagine it's partly because of the response to Captain Marvel being dull and boring, is this is a fun movie. It's a fun, wacky movie. It's a fun movie. It's fun, guys. Like, there's always these kinds of strategies that seem to be employed with each of the films that speak to some, like, meta-criticisms, but all of it is, like, none of it addresses the fundamental, which is that the writing is just piss. It's bad. It's really bad.
When was Marvel's last fun movie? What would you say their last fun movie was?
Like, that was actually fun?
Yeah.
This is complicated, though, because I think a lot of people would say Guardians 3, and I'd be like,
And
Guardians 3 was fun at times, but
it was pretty...
but there wasn't enough strong writing in there to make me walk out with a smile.
I see a few people in chat saying Ragnarok, which I think is a fair choice. But Infinity War was a really
like 6
funny
years
movie
old at this point.
times.
Infinity War was really funny, but it was also one of the darkest, if not the darkest entry in the whole MCU.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Infinity War fun.
So it probably is Ragnarok, Guardians 2, that kind of like, which again, 6 years ago. I guess to tie it all back, when I see in the article, oh yeah, what if we pivot to Doctor Doom? That'll fix things. It's just like you
know what they need
know?
to understand that wouldn't solve anything is a multiverse, but an actual one where we could show them, like, here's the inflection point. You chose Galactus in Universe 1, you chose Doctor Doom in Universe 2, Mephisto in Universe 3, Kang in 4, and you show them all of them and they all fail, and it's like, wait a minute. How did that happen? Like, how is that possible?
Left, right? That should have worked.
And then they're like, were we supposed to bring back Obadiah Stane? You're like, no. Like, what you need to do...
Obadiah Stane!
It's fucking write better. It's so simple.
And of course, you know, the problem of the writing can be tied into other criticisms that I imagine that they're aware of, which is that the production, the way that these things are made is insane. They're made very quickly with incomplete scripts, with the writers having no idea how their stories connect to other things, and seemingly just not being very good at their jobs anyway. Like, I don't know. So, like, I imagine that if they made less stuff, that would probably just invariably help, but it wouldn't, like, fix the problem necessarily if there's no recognition of the flaws in the writing.
Based on, like, them having real talent and having produced really, real movies. But I guess that's not how it works.
Well, we've talked about it before, but there's no world where, like, Steven Spielberg would make a Marvel movie because he'd want to make it his way. And, like, you kind of can't do that. Like, when you make Marvel movies, at the end of the day, it's got to slot into their universe. the
Which seems like a
execs want to.
small. It legitimately seems like a small thing to ask, considering
It,
how broad it is and how much stuff you can do with that. Just be like, hey, it's part of a cinematic universe. It needs to slot in with the rest of the films in the series, but other than that, you can do whatever you want as long as
which
it's not doesn't contradict anything else.
I
Especially if you gave
think,
him like the first entry of a new introduced hero that they're doing.
yeah, no, that's like that's I think it might be what ends up helping DC is that it seems like they might try to be more director oriented, but again, you still need them good scripts, you know? Like
Gotta have good scripts, yeah. Because at this point, the MCU feels like an anchor that every movie is going to have to either drag around with it or just forget about.
And well, they usually opt to forget, don't they?
Normally, they just forget.
Um,
It's definitely the buffet where they just pick out the sort of things that they want, and the rest they just ignore, which ultimately doesn't create, a plausible cinematic universe.
So, quote, Marvel is truly fucked with the whole Kang angle, says one top
jeez.
deal maker who's seen the final Loki episode. And they haven't, quote, and they haven't had an opportunity to rewrite until very recently because of the WGA strike, but I don't see a path to how they move forward with him. Yeah, that's very, I mean, they want to know, it's funny because we talk about all these potential decisions, but like the big thing is just they need to know the conclusion of the case itself, right? The event itself, whatever the fuck is going on with him. Before we can make any decisions, and that's hard enough, we have to wait, which is also very difficult when they're possibly in their most tumultuous era ever, and every decision now matters incredibly.
And especially when you got to remember the broader consequences of the writers and actors strike is it's not just like Marvel stuff, it's a bunch of productions for all of the studios. They like that's delays, that's money that you're not making this year but making next year, which is important. Like that shit matters to investors. It's a tumultuous time for the industry in general.
Yeah, all the COVID stuff that happened, obviously the strikes, there's all kinds of let's call them third party events and elements that are crushing down on this thing that was already destroying itself.
Yep.
Well, Rags, you're up.
Alrighty. Beyond the bad press for Majors, the brain trust at Marvel is also grappling with the November release of The Marvels, a sequel to 2019's blockbuster Captain Marvel that it has been plagued with lengthy reshoots and now appears likely to underwhelm at the box office.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could say that. You could say that it looks like it's going to underwhelm at the box office.
I was about to say that's a nice way to put it. I was like, no, actually, wait, because underwhelm is probably what it will do because it's not. We don't expect it to whelm at all. Nobody's expecting any whelming, so it will under that probably.
Well, so if the projections are accurate, long term, this might actually end up being the first. Because like there doesn't seem to be like a full acknowledgement of Ant-Man being like a flat out failure. It's definitely a disappointment, but like whether or not it is a failure is kind of like wishy-washy for whatever reason. Even though
which is already bad news.
That's already bad. When we say failure, we don't mean in terms of meeting the expectations, which is really important, but just flat. Did it make its money back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the Marvels might actually be like the first true like bomb. It might actually
what you could call a
lose
clean like bomb instead of when you consider this, it's like no, this seems to be obvious.
Yeah, like we spent a lot of money to lose a lot of money.
That it could lose money, and that there's really you can't point to big like COVID. That's not that you can't use that anymore.
Stop blaming
like,
COVID. It's not been an excuse for like a year plus now. You need to stop.
No, you can't. Yeah, no. There's so many movies that have made so much money.
Oppenheimer chugged along.
$1 billion.
Well, surely the comparison would be No Way Home. That's the easiest one to be like in your own franchise with the superheroes. Like it's, and as much as it's like, yeah, but it's Spider-Man. It's like, okay, but still.
Oppenheimer was 947.
There was no Spider-Man in Oppenheimer, was there?
The reason why it's relevant, though, the Spider-Man one, is because Captain Marvel nearly made as much money as Far From Home, because that was back when Marvel movies were guaranteed to make $1 billion. To go from... And it's interesting, because Aquaman's probably in the same position. I still can't fathom how that made $1 billion, but like it's probably in the same position where it's going to come out, and it may well make less than half of the money that it made first time around.
Also, Dev's in chat.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Hi, Dev. Hello.
We're talking about the destruction of Disney.
Yep.
Wait, who's next?
Do you think so? How are we sitting on our because we've kind of had a very soft running prediction for the Marvels box office. I think fairly early on, I was a bit more pessimistic than most, and I was floating around as an estimate, about a $350 million number,
which
is low.
pessimistic
I admit.
time.
I
Yeah.
think I think that at the time I was like the lowest in terms of the guesses amongst who we were with, but as months drag on, there was that element of like, oh shit, like that's not unreasonable.
I think I was at like 500 million. That
Yeah, I
seems
think
like
so.
that seems like it was too high. It's almost certainly going to make less money than that at this point.
Yeah,
So 300 million, that might actually be real
I know it sounds
close.
hyperbolic, but I'm pretty sure it has basically everything working against it. This is going to be so interesting because it's fucked. Like,
and this is after Dune moved out of the way. Dune was meant to come out.
True, it's supposed to come out like last week.
And that was going to have all the IMAX screens, but the problem is that it's still competitive because it's November. Movies are coming out right now. Like it's only going to have. I think that new Hunger Games movie's coming out the week after, but I don't think that film's going to do.
No, I don't think people care about it. We'll see though.
But
all the kids who watched Hunger Games, they're grown up now. They don't care.
I feel like we're well past the era of the young
adult action movies,
science fiction. Yeah. Let me actually double check so the numbers for this is the projection from the Hollywood Reporter for the Marvels was that it would earn 70 to 80 million in its opening weekend in North America.
Wait, because Thunder just said at least you have the dude skins in Call of Duty. Did they release that as part of a promotion? They couldn't stop it, or
maybe they couldn't. Yeah.
Oh,
some of these things, like the promotions for games are really they baffle me. I guess Dune makes a lot more sense because of the movie, and it was pretty big, made a lot of money. There's one going on because I play Apex Legends sometimes. They have a Post Malone like skin sale that they're going to be doing, and I'm like, what the fuck? What does Post Malone have to do with whatever? I don't know. This is fucking shit. Whatever. Your Supreme skins
might be worthwhile for reference because I guess this is tangential to the article. So Hollywood Reporter. The tracking for the Marvels was basically around about 75 to 80 million dollars domestic debut, which I believe is half of what Captain Marvel made in its opening weekend.
Let me see. And 80 million is still a lot.
It's a lot of money, but the problem is when you're spending over $200 million on production alone, and you know. And you make most of your money in that opening weekend, especially for these types of like superhero movies. They make a lot.
The ones
of their
that
money
are not going to get a lot of. There's not going to be a lot of people out there saying, "Yeah, you really got to go see the Marvels." That keeps it like again. Oppenheimer started kind of slow, but it got to 947 million because it just kept going.
Oppenheimer was definitely Oppenheimer had a really good opening, but it was definitely long term. Like that was what carried it through. Was that
it's like
people
Top
kept
Gun.
going back. I guess this is the relevant information in terms of the last Marvel movie that didn't open to 70 million or more was Ant-Man 1 in 2015. The majority opened to 100 million or more domestically. 8 movies made $150 million domestically in their opening weekend. And compared to Guardians 3, which you saw where that ended up, opened to 106 million domestic. So it's below that, obviously, which
do you guys see
considering that Captain Marvel was above that is interesting.
The Marvels...
Someone just messaged me and said the Final Fantasy 14 had a Fall Guys crossover and have had multiple KFC crossovers.
Can you play as the Colonel?
I don't know. I hope so. Maybe he fries chocobos or something.
Oh my god.
Yeah, either of you aware of what Marvel Entertainment, the YouTube channel, did as promotion for the Marvels, like, I think 2 days ago?
I saw the tweet.
No.
So I'm not talking just about cats in general. This was a stream where there was clearly like 3-ish people maybe that were probably given a lot of money to set up a room and to paint or to put up things that made all of the windows and open doors green screens so that they could put a space graphic in background that looked awful. And there was cats running around the room, and they had a camera that just either auto-followed or they had someone just looking at cats just doing cat things. And then every like half an hour they would have an unboxing where a person who comes on screen, you can't see their face, it's like cut to their neck.
I
And then
wouldn't want my face in that either, to be.
they like
so-
fiddle with the boxes. They're like doing really weird hand gestures on all of the boxes, but to delay opening them as like long as possible, and then eventually reveal like Captain Marvel Funko Pop. And then they just put cats on the table and make the cats walk around the Funko Pop. And they played like space music. And it was so fucking
Space
creepy.
music.
Yeah, just like, for lack of a better description, it's like ethereal, almost like space-ish music. It was kind of just, it was just fucking weird.
Okay, I think I know what you mean.
And I caught like, I want to say 20 minutes of it, and I was just like, this is fucking pathetic. And they went down to 300 viewers at one point. And I was just like, and there were people in chat. There was one message I sent to Gary, because it was so fucking cringy. It was some account that just said, hooray, can't wait for the release of the Marvels. We're all very excited. Hooray. And I was like, is that a human?
Someone's check cleared.
It just doesn't sound at all real. And I was like, fuck me, man. Like, what is going on? And I was like, is that part of the marketing budget? You paid for this? Like, how much did you pay for this?
The really concerning part is that it probably wasn't even cheap.
That's what I was thinking.
Because you
I was
have
like,
to
imagine
pay
it costs
for
like
the-
500,000 or something fucking absurd. Like,
You gotta pay people to do it, to actually be the ones to do it. Then you have to pay all the people to set it up. Then you have to get the set. Then you have to handle all the cats. And then you have to arrange the Funko this and that, and all the deals with Funko Pop to do that. So I don't know. It's strange. But it probably costs more than you think, because there's always going to be a legal this, and there's always going to be a advisory board and a supervision team.
It often only comes up here and there, but like, it's not just whether you have marketing; it's how good the marketing is.
Exactly.
You can have really bad marketing. We talked before in the past. There've been trailers for movies that have sold movies the complete wrong way. I think one of the more recent ones is the Dungeons and Dragons trailer. Made everyone think the movie was going to be absolutely terrible, but the movie itself is still getting praised to this day.
Yeah, I've heard the movie's alright, but the trailer was trash.
It misrepresented it. And it's like, fuck me. And you usually get that in the opposite, where the trailer's really good, and then the movie's like really shit. You're like, oh.
Mm-hmm. I'm next, aren't I?
Sure.
This is all an unprecedented turn of fortune for a company that has enjoyed a nearly uninterrupted string of hits ever since it started independently producing movies. With 2008's Iron Man, that wildly profitable run culminated in the $2.8 billion success of 2019 Avengers Endgame, a high watermark for the studio that has earned nearly $30 billion over 32 films.
I just like that there's multiple ways that we can analyze it, that it goes from Iron Man to Endgame, and then something else happens. Because like that, even though it's not true, like that loads of people would say that's where the story ends. It's like, no, it ends at Infinity War, right? That's what everybody should probably choose. And it's like, okay, but that's the last time they had like a huge profit, and it's like, oh, No Way Home is still kind of not like, it doesn't go to them, but it's still in terms of a movie making loads of money and having a cultural impact. It's like, it's not just stops at Endgame.
And also, you know, Multiverse of Madness was successful.
Yeah, it was
quite successful. Maybe not as successful as they were hoping it was going to be, just over $1 billion, but it was certainly successful. I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder was technically successful. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was technically successful, though again that one also made considerably less than the first one.
Yeah, and no one talks about it.
Nobody
no one talks about any of these movies. They are you know, smoke in the wind. They just pass away.
What would be really cool is to take your average sort of huge Marvel fan and just be like, name me all the projects of Phase 4 and see. There's going to be the types that could name it all instantly, but there's also going to be people who are like, wow, it was.
Because Wakanda Forever might be one that I forget to say, just because it's so unmemorable.
Well, I think some people would say Quantumania, and you'd be like, nope.
That's Phase 5.
And you'd be like, oh, all right.
Oh.
And
that's right. Wakanda Forever was the last of Phase 4?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the last.
Well, obviously, because the line between Black Panther 2 and Quantumania was so clear. It was such a great sort of handoff between phases.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, something happened at the end of that. I don't know. It's I don't know. There's no sense that we've moved from one phase to another.
I've seen a bunch of people in chat being like, hooray, I'm watching EFAP today. Hooray. Like, yeah.
They should say that. Good on you.
You know those are genuine.
Yeah.
Feed our egos.
Yeah, okay. So replicating that kind of phenomenon is never easy. However, the source of Marvel's current troubles can be traced back to 2020. Arguably, you could trace it back way further, but that's okay. That's when COVID pandemic ushered in a mandate to help boost Disney's stock price with an endless torrent of interconnected Marvel content for the studio's fledgling streaming platform, Disney+. According to the plan, there would never be a lapse in superhero fare. Ugh. With either a film in theaters or a new television series streaming at any given moment. You can tell that. There's loads of these weird handoffs, like Loki to the Marvels is the newest one, obviously.
Mhm.
And it's just like, what are you doing? Like the one, was it the same day that the penultimate episode of Mando came out with Rise of Skywalker? They were going to do this with Star Wars as well.
Yeah, because the penultimate episode of Mando introduced force healing.
Which helps justify it in Rise of Skywalker, according to the insane braids. That's totally how that works.
It is interesting because the talk of lots and lots of, because I remember I read another article, damn, I can't remember what it was from, it was one of these trades, that was talking about how following the writer's strike, there is absolutely going to be less scripted television shows, that like the era of the last, 5-6 years where there's been an absolute like torrent of scripted high budget television shows for like streaming platforms and cable, that is definitely going to be winding down. Partially because I guess the broader thing is that not all of these streaming services are going to survive.
They're
lot of them
not.
will lose
I mean,
money.
Disney's
There's too
already
many of
looking
them.
to buy Hulu, right?
Well, they
And
had
Disney Plus
partial,
itself isn't doing hot at all.
Disney had partial ownership of Hulu, but now they're going to get full ownership. I guess it's like, is there space for Paramount Plus or Peacock or?
I think Peacock's in huge trouble. I think they've lost a shit ton of money.
I don't know.
I mean,
was there a single fucking high-level executive that instead of looking at the pandemic years as an all-time high that was obviously going to shrink, like seemingly all of them looked at it as like year one of an exponentially growing force?
Well, that's like the people with like DoorDash and all of that. It's the same thing. They got a huge boost from that entire sector of the market from, the people not going out and ordering in. And now here we are, and it's like, good luck turning a profit out, if it's even possible to turn a profit with that kind of a business now.
Because we're seeing as well that the tech sector is starting to contract. Lots of layoffs are happening as well because there was a tremendous amount of growth in the tech sector, and
people are going back outside.
Also, yeah, and as some people are saying in chat, it's like, I'm aware that that's what you want for a company, but you have to recognize that, like, the streaming numbers didn't. There's no like, oh, we earned X in this year, the pandemic year, and next year it's going to be X times 2 and times 3, and it's like, no, you need to account for the fact that this is going down. You
should have treated it like a gift.
Because something that I've been thinking about a lot, which I guess we could talk about more later on, is the when I wonder if Marvel is doomed. What I wonder is if they're at like a point where they can't really fix these problems. It's kind of like they feed into each other, so it's like a negative feedback loop. So, like, for instance, one of the criticisms is that Marvel productions look cheap and bad. They're not cheap. The only way you can fix that problem is, well, you got to spend more money. Surely you either got to spend more money or cut back on the scope. But like, where are you gonna get that money from? Are you gonna pay the actors less? Because if you pay the actors less, I would imagine that some of them would be like, well, I'm not very interested in being part of this series. I'm not gonna get paid a lot of money. Like, what is the kind of thing that would motivate someone to be part of Marvel rather than essentially do something that they would consider like more valid, I guess, as a means of artistic expression? You know what I mean? Like it I imagine that a big incentive to do Marvel films is you get paid a lot of money, but that there would be other things a lot of these actors would rather be doing in terms of creativity. And so it's like, you're going to pay them less? That's probably not like viable. But you're making less money, so where are you going to get the money from anyway? Do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it's even like the kind of thing that you can actually reverse.
And then factor
easily.
in strikes as well, and the
that's right.
unions.
I mean, you've got I mean, like, Hemsworth is saying, like, he'll only do another Thor movie if they fucking treat his character seriously, or else he's just out. He's doing his own thing. It's like, I'm going to go make Extraction 3 or any other movie that I'm going to do. So
Extraction 4,
which,
Extraction
by the way,
5.
it's like, I'm unironically, I was like, hey, Extraction 3, I'm all for it. You keep doing it, man.
Something that I wonder in terms of exacerbating, because I'm seeing people say, well, more time. It's like, yeah, but part of the problem is, I'm pretty sure that Disney wants Deadpool 3 to come out in May. That film is half finished.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts.
They haven't finished shooting that film. and they still want it in May. And it's like, do you know why the reason for that is? The reason why is because they want to make some fucking money. But like, I don't know if they're going to actually want to take time when they've just spent 3 months not making anything. Like, you know what I mean? I wonder if that's going to further exacerbate the problems as well.
I have to
I
use the
don't
loo. I'll be right back. So just letting you know.
No
Oh, okay,
problem.
well,
Though
then
he was next, so I guess it goes to you
Alright,
again,
well,
Fringy.
okay, we'll just loop back around. Deadpool 3 got delayed. Is it delayed? Am I going to look it up on Wikipedia
well,
right now?
I assume part of your
the
point,
same
Fringy,
day?
was that it's inevitably going to be delayed. Like it was.
It's inevitably going to be delayed, but the
Yeah.
fact that they don't want to delay it, and they'll probably only delay it by a few months because they want it out. They want to get it out. Yeah, it's still scheduled for the 3rd of May. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but the ensuing tsunami of spandex proved to be too much of a good thing. See, we can talk about it. And the demands of churning out so much programming taxed the Marvel apparatus. Well, that's true. Moreover, the need to tease out an interwoven storyline over so many disparate shows, movies, and platforms created a muddled narrative that baffled viewers. Yeah, so this is like the kind of point that I would point to as, yeah, so if this is what they actually believe, then I don't know that they'll properly fix the problem, because it's not the fact that they're trying to tease out an interwoven story over many disparate shows. It's actually that none of them are even talking to each other.
Yeah, none of
everything
the shows are aware of each other.
They contradict each other. Like it's not overly complicated because it's so intricate and so well formed, and you need to be paying attention to you pay attention to every detail. It breaks. It just keeps breaking.
The way you build something like this, they've made it seem almost impossible, and a lot of people talk about it that way. It's like, oh, there's an inevitability that it would fall apart. It's so big, and it's like you control for the big and scary variables, but the rest is mostly straightforward. When you have like you just need to keep creating scenarios where in a bubble your character can do and say anything, and it wouldn't affect anything anywhere else. It all lines up in continuity. When it's like, you know, I don't want to say Loki because it's too difficult to fix. It just shouldn't exist. But WandaVision, that was probably going to be fine. That doesn't need to affect anything. When you have a big magical event happening in this small town, it's like, okay, so you have, I don't know how much time before the police should be notified, but it's probably going to be, anywhere between days and 2 weeks or something. That's like the timeline we'd be allowing for. Because there's people in that town that will now not be able to contact loved ones, and then the police will be made aware. So, like I said, probably days. And then when the police are there, that means that more and more people around the world will get to know it. And that's when Doctor Strange has to be called in. He's the magic supreme man, and it's a magic event. This is kind of what I'm trying to get at, is like, what by being in the MCU will be needed to be taken care of by having a story of a witch or whatever the fuck going mad and creating an illusory state in a small town in the middle of America. It's like, well, probably those things. That's the thing you have to stick to, and then you're fine. You can make anything happen in that dome. Anything, really, as long as it's not like, breaks the universe. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. They treat it as though, if they collect all of the discontinuity that would exist at this point and lay it out on the sheet, they'd be like, look at this, impossible. And it's like, yeah, but all of these things were done one by one by idiot writers who didn't remember they needed to take care of it. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because I would say that, again, I still don't think that this speaks to the core of the problem, but I think a more apt argument would be that there is actually a lack of forward momentum, that it's unclear where things are heading. Not that it's getting too complicated to follow, but rather that very little has been achieved over the course of several films, because they have their story that contradicts other stories but doesn't really connect to them either. Like, it doesn't build anything for them. It only builds its own stuff while breaking other things. And now, a dozen projects later, is anything really any closer to culminating in big relevant crossover stories? I don't know about that. I don't like the idea that it's confusing because there's a lot of it. It's confusing because it doesn't make any sense. It's fucked. It's bad. It's just badly written. But I mean, the idea that having to make this much stuff tax the Marvel apparatus, I mean, obviously, yeah, like, it's stretched thin.
And it holds true, always will. Even the current state of either Star Wars or Doctor Who or the MCU, you could still repair it back. You always can.
Yep, you can, but I don't think they will.
No, I don't think they. You might be able to say I don't think they can. Like,
it's possible, but for Marvel too. But again, for as long as they think, oh, it's the bad CGI that's a problem. Oh, it's that there's too many. There's too many. Not how they're made, but that there's too many of them, and it's confusing people. As long as this is like the attitude that they have, I don't think that they're going to fix the problem.
there's a lot of crushing forces that will prevent them from doing so, but if there was like a 0.01% chance of them doing it, it would just be like knuckling down and making a really solid movie and then slapping it into the MCU, and it doesn't even, might even contradict some stuff, but as long as it's really good, you'll be like, wow, that was good. And then you're like, all right, we've got a spark there. There's some people who are like, that one was good, that one. And then if you make another one, be like, okay, I like, and then if it's a character that was in both of those movies that's new, be like, I like that character. Like, getting there. Got a cheap chipping at it. I was thinking as well, like, enough with the goof. We gotta start going serious again.
Yes, but not what they did with Secret Invasion, where they pretend it's serious, but it's still a clown show. Like, you know, closer to something like Iron Man 1, where it takes itself serious. It's still got, you know, the comedy, and it's still got the laughs, and it's still got like just the cool factor, but it is trying to tell a story about a character going on an arc.
Because, you know, like, if it was really well written but also a comedic romp, I'd be like, okay, that's fine, but like, we should probably start making it have some serious entries again, so that people can maybe think about this on a more significant level than lol, it's just a clown show, even if it is well written comedy. Because I was thinking, like, you know, who would you bring, Fringy? Who would you be bringing in to fix this villain-wise? Because I assume we'd be getting rid of Kang anyway. Because he's so sad.
So like, if the wizard told me you got to get rid of Kang, you need to find someone else as a
But he gets to be. I say she. I guess if so was preferred. I can't think of any. Yeah, but who would you want to bring in yourself?
Who would I personally want? And I guess baked into it is that they're actually going to be like a great villain, well written and everything.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
I'd want Doom, or I think I'd want Magneto. I'd want to go in one of those two directions.
Beginning the X-Men.
I would almost want to earn the X-Men, and what I mean by that is, like, I'm going to try and repair everything. I'll cut a few things out, but yes, I'd want to go with Doom as well. And I'd want the first time we meet him, he's going to have to kill one of the main Avengers.
Yes. You got to do the same thing that they did with Thanos before they undid everything. His first scene is him killing Loki, and then he killed Heimdall, and then he killed.
Yeah. Well, you already picture like a good old fight with maybe Avengers style music happening, but slowly, like, they're all losing, and then the soundtrack cuts out, and then he kills one of them.
I think that's you got to make him threatening. You got to have him, because it's as been pointed out, the fact that Kang got defeated by Ant-Man pretty easily, honestly, is not great in terms of making him intimidating. But like, imagine if he just showed up and he killed like one of the Avengers, and it was easy. It wasn't even that difficult for him.
Or he has a really, really effective and scary army that can do that sort of thing, that he commands and controls.
I'm always
like, it's like the whole, like, what if stormtroopers were actually like lore accurate, shall we say? You know, if they were like really scary, and when a stormtrooper shows up, when a Star Destroyer shows up, you're like, oh fuck, we have to go now. Like, this is actually a terrible thing to happen.
I'm chill with armies, but I'd always prefer it when they have like lieutenants. And they kind of did that with Infinity War and then waste them in Endgame, right? Like
I agree, yeah. I forget their names, but I remember them, like, as, you know.
Yeah, mini bosses, you know.
Mini bosses.
This was one of the reasons why Worf in Star Trek kind of gets an unfair shake with a lot of people who think that he's kind of a pushover, because so often in episodes, Worf would be the one who gets tossed around by the big evil villain of the episode, but it was to establish that, well, if this bad guy, this force, can take on Worf and beat him up, then, you know, he means business. Worf was just the, you know, unfortunate recipient of that kind of an establishment of stakes. Did you know that Worf is the most? He has the most occurrences in all Star Trek.
What does that mean?
He's in more Star Trek episodes. And shows. I think there's more Worf than anyone else in Star Trek.
I thought you were going to say, like, occurrences is some kind of Star Trek thing, like incursions or something.
Something that I would add on the villain side is, it's one of Marvel's biggest problems is they keep killing off their villains. I think if I got to do it over again, there'd be a lot of villains I would keep around. But moreover, if we were going with the angle of Doom, I'd want the lieutenants, you know, enforcers or whatever, to be like other villains, so that it all kind of like, that you can keep them and have them as elements that he's kind of manipulating behind the scenes that all lead up to him.
And it shows progress towards working towards the main villain, where killing one of his lieutenants is like, we've beat a mini boss. We have made progress, you know, forwards. You know, like, that's a big deal.
Like,
You
Could
know,
you imagine? It would just be like, I don't know, like Doom hires Taskmaster, but actual Taskmaster to get something for him, and then he encounters one of the heroes, and then that's like how you set up a bit of a thread of, is there something that's being worked towards here? But keep Taskmaster around, so that he can show up
absolutely.
again later.
You know what I'm thinking about with the lieutenants thing building up to the main boss, Zabi and the Chief. I forget which
Oh
specifically the
with
season
Chaos
is.
Theosis,
Yeah,
season
yeah.
6.
Oh, I love that sense of progression, taking them all out one by one, and then going for the king sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I mean, one of the cool things that he did was that when they actually go for the big bad, they take him out like pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's nice and subversive.
Subversive!
The point being that it's like it's just a good narrative structure to employ of working up towards something grander, but getting all of those other people to be characters themselves that represent different different angles that you can go with. But
It's like beating
again,
Saruman. Like, it's a big deal to win at
Yeah.
Helm's Deep, to defeat
Yeah.
Saruman and his army, and everyone's like, "Oh, we get a bit of a break here. We get a little bit of breath. We did a good job. We've made progress,
And
but
that's-
there's still the big evil guy to go. But like, we've made some progress here.
That's why
We've
I'm
gotten
chill
over this hump."
with armies as well. Because you remember Resident Evil Village? I like the lieutenant's aspect in that. It's just we also felt they were wasted in a lot of ways. But, if you have one that's like a big brawler and then another one that's not really powerful, kind of really intelligent, and it has a bunch of puppeted like creatures that it'll send at you, and it's like, oh, that's a way to implement armies in some
Yeah,
ways.
because remember, we got that in Infinity War. We had Squidward. We had he
right.
wasn't really martial, but he had the telekinesis powers that he
Yeah.
used very effectively. Then we had the others who were like they were fighters. They had weapons. They could leap around and jump up and down, and they'd fuck you up.
And they had
They were
epic
very
edge
different from one
names like
another.
Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight. Gosh.
That's right. They got edgy names.
Those are pretty. I wouldn't
Cull
want to fight anyone
Obsidian.
named Proxima Glaive.
Squidward was the
or
best
Proxima-
one, though, name-wise. Even though that's not his name, but
What
it
ab-
is now.
What about what's Darth Maul's brother? Savage Opress?
We always come back to him.
Savage
he's always waiting there.
He's Chef's Kiss. What a beautiful name. I think his
Wonderful.
parents set him up to be a villain. I don't even blame him.
Yep.
Somehow, out of the four, I think I do like Ebony more the most.
Yeah, I think I like that one the most.
All right, anyway, I guess it's back to me.
You are next. Yeah.
Whoa, the Marvel machine was pumping out a lot of content. Did it get to the point where there was just too much and they were burning people out on superheroes? It's possible, says Wall Street analyst Eric Handler, who covers Disney. Quote, the more you do, the tougher it is to maintain quality. They tried experimenting with breaking in some new characters like Shang-Chi and the Eternals with mixed results. With budgets as big as these, you need home runs.
Kind of
We've certainly
interesting.
discussed the superhero fatigue. That's popped up more than a few times over the years. And I think it really does come down to the fact that if they were good, there would be no fatigue.
Nope, I don't think so.
Well, like, the more you do, the tougher it's made to. I was like, I do agree, but like, I feel like they fumbled hard. Like, this was ridiculous.
I don't know that I've seen a streak this bad in terms of quality ever of just releasing like 12 projects that with one outlier, like were like 2s, 3s, and some of them 1s out of 10. That's unbelievable by our standard, obviously.
It's their entire process of picking who makes these things that's just totally fucked. I mean, when we talk about let's see, what was it? Back in the kind of 50s to 70s, all the shows like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie. It was super, at least in the United States. Westerns were everywhere. Always Westerns. Western movies, Western shows. It was the age of the Westerns. And slowly but surely, they started to kind of die out. They turned into like cop procedurals and things of that nature. But I don't think that shift happened because people started getting... I don't think that all the Westerns were just like shit all of a sudden and people started hating them. I think it's just, this is a thing that's also happening, and then it's just more of a more organic kind of healthy shift to a different sort of thing.
Yeah, compared to an utter collapse in 3 years. Like that's...
Yeah. It's not like you didn't just get 3 years of horrifically bad, uninteresting characters and stories that make people just yearn for anything else.
Marvel's reign could have been longer. I think it would have ended no matter what, but like they killed it themselves so much sooner than it had to die.
Absolutely.
I totally think so. Absolutely. If they would, like I said, if it was just banger after banger, if like half of their movies were good, not even great, good. If we're talking 6, 7 out of 10s, and that was half their movies, they could keep trucking along, and we'd keep watching them and probably enjoying them.
Yep.
Yeah, like
People
me
don't
the
tire
6 and
of
7s. They're
stories.
fun.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what was our like Underwater, right? Like the quintessential like 6 out of 10
Yeah, I
or
think
whatever.
so.
We're just like, oh, this is neat. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad I watched it. Not to be the I hate rags guy, but the dog is annoying and has zero insight.
Oh my
True. True. Luckily, I got these two guys to carry me through to victory.
Unfortunately, I have to say that it is now your turn to
That's
talk,
true.
Rags.
Your turn,
Oof.
Rags.
All right. Let me see. The Marvels, which opened in theaters on November the 10th, will struggle to get the ball past the infield, at least by Marvel's outsized standards. For those of you in the chat, that is a baseball analogy. Have you guys heard about baseball? Baseball's wonderful.
Wait, what's an
That means
analogy?
Oh, an analogy is like a thing that's like a thing, but not quite that thing. Ooh, it's great. That means they didn't hit the ball very far. They didn't even get the ball to the outfield, which is further away from the batter than the infield. All right. Just want to make sure everyone's up to speed on the baseball
There's some insight
analogy.
for you.
There you go. The movie, which cost $250 million and sees Brie Larson reprising her role as Captain Marvel, is tracking to open to $75 to $80 million. Far below the $185 million Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness took in domestically in its debut weekend last year.
Yeah, like I mean, there's no anything to deal with that is cope. There's no getting around that. That's
also-
dramatically less.
There's got to be some kind of profound, depressing experience to be an actor or actress that's going through all of these different films in your career. There's some are indie, some of this, some of that, and then you're like, you know, someone says like, we made like we got $1 million on this like thing that maybe would cost like 100,000 or something. It's like, oh wow, and then like you're Brie Larson, you complete this film several times because of reshoots. You don't know what the fuck's going on. You don't even know if you have a career with Marvel after this. And then someone says like, you're on track to make 80 million on the first day. That's terrible. Like, okay,
It is a little
is.
surreal,
All right.
right? To where making $75 to $80 million isn't good enough. Like that's still a good amount of money, but yeah, when you're spending $250 million on production alone, not including marketing, that's not good enough.
It's just the super mega bloat of a lot of this stuff is well, let's take a move. What was the we saw X recently, allegedly. What was the
Mhm.
budget of Saw X? Was that
Probably
like
$10 million? Pretty
Yeah.
and
low.
that's and it never
Oh.
felt cheap.
I mean, remember, right? Like, it's interesting to think about because Saw cost $1 million to make and made over 100 million. I mean, you go further back than that. Rocky, like, didn't Rocky make like 10,000 times his budget?
I could double check.
10,000.
I think so. Like, Rocky was really because Rocky had a production budget of $960,000 and it made $225 million.
It did. Jeez.
Yeah.
Rocky 2 made 200 million. Rocky 3 made 270 million. Rocky 4 made 300 million. Rocky 5 made 120 million. Rocky Balboa 156 million. And then Creed 2, and Creed 3 made 174 million to 14 million. Oh, Creed 3 made 275 million.
Is
And-
Creed
and
3 the one
again,
where he
the reason
fights Jonathan Majors? It is,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah.
But I guess
That's
again,
appropriate.
it's interesting to look at the kind of money that these projects make because it's not about how high the box office number is. The return on the investment is the most important metric.
And and on the other side, it's not about being expensive, it's about not looking cheap.
Oh
Not
yeah,
looking
dude.
cheap.
I watched the movies that made us for Halloween, and apparently, like, of their very limited budget, I think they spent something like 40% of it on a camera, and they said like this camera, I forget the name of it, is going to make the movie not look cheap. That's like the whole point.
100%.
Halloween
yes.
doesn't look cheap.
Because all of us know, children of the 90s that we are, and in the 2000s, this kind of holds true. That cheapy, like there's just that camera
Yeah.
that you're like, oh, this looks like a 90s. I don't even say like a 90s sitcom, but like this looks like a cheap movie. It opens up, you get your first scene, and you're like, oh, this is a movie that's gonna look like this the whole time. It has this
I
cheap
guess
look to it.
that's kind of the funny thing, though, isn't it? Because like cheapness or lack thereof, Joker had a budget of we keep it in the realm of comic book movies.
There you
Joker had a
go.
budget of $50 million. That film doesn't look. It looks better than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which costs 4 times as much money.
The
Well, we can keep it to R-rated superhero movies, right? Oppenheimer,
Yeah.
that movie is $100 million budget.
Yeah, and it looked fantastic.
And think about how good it looks, and the fact that it's all period appropriate 30s to like 50s stuff, all the sets, all of the costumes, outfits, it looks totally buy into it 100%, and it's $1 million.
I'm so glad,
100 million.
Rags, I'm so glad you brought up Oppenheimer, because
Anytime.
I think it's a relatively well-known factoid that a lot of the cast took less money than they would typically take for a film, because of the desire to, have a certain budget for Oppenheimer, and because they were really passionate about making the film. How many Marvel actors would happily take a dramatic pay cut in order to be a part of these films? That's kind of like what I was talking about before in terms of them being doomed. I don't know how many actors would be willing to be like, I believe in this story so much that I'm willing to take less than half of what I would typically ask for because I like this movie. I don't think that would ever happen.
I mean, the ones that might... for instance, let me ask you this. Do you think that, because we've mentioned him before, do you think Chris Hemsworth would take half the money if he was assured and confident that the next Thor movie would be very respectful to Thor as a character and treat him well?
Oh, if he got assured of that, probably, but
because I think
he would. No guarantees. That's the thing.
But if he believed it to be the case, I feel like he would. But maybe it's just because we just live in a world where actors get paid these just insane sums of money. And I'm not saying they do or don't deserve it, or that's a good or bad thing. It's just the way that it often is.
On the sort of lower budget scrappy stuff, another thing about Halloween, the shot in the sort of iconic, I guess we call it iconic, when the kid is moving through the house, gets the mask, and then does the stuff, that was done with a camera that had I believe something like, for each take they had a maximum of 3 minutes, because it was like a camera. I forget I don't want to get the name wrong of it, but like you walk with it, and it's one of it was a lower budget one. It was the best they could get, and so basically they wanted a one take where they were following the kid.
Like a cord?
Cordless, I think. Point is that like they were limited to the point of having a Steadicam would be it. Yeah.
Maybe it could only hold so much like actual like
film. Yeah, like it was limited to that point.
It was just out of film.
Okay, and they had to come up with a way to have a cut, and they did it with the kids, so to speak, in that scene, picking up a mask and putting it on, and so the swipe down with the mask was, they were able to chop together the 2 full takes of the one, and then I was just like, fucking stuff like that's so cool when they're so hyper limited in extreme ways by technology, and then they come through and make something that like people remember forever. And to read a super chat ahead of time, it just said, you just accidentally revealed the next Halloween arc, which is the Halloween films. I've revealed nothing. Nothing at all.
You know
You
what?
can speculate all you want.
Definitely. That's totally our next arc, is how you got us. You sure did get us. Good job. You figured it out. All right. Yep. You did it. Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, we keep it secret, but there's no real reason we do.
We've mentioned plenty of Halloween movies.
Yeah, we've talked about.
We've seen spooky movies before. Like we see them.
Yeah. Anyway, who's next? What's happening?
I am.
I think Pringy's up.
Yeah. Directed by Nia DaCosta, The Marvels unites licensed heroine with 2 superpowered allies. Tayona Paris, Monica Rambeau, introduced in 2021 Disney Plus series WandaVision, and Iman Vellani's Kamala Khan, first seen in the 2022 series Miss Marvel. But instead of seamlessly building on the success of Captain Marvel, this movie resulted in 4 weeks of reshoots to bring coherence to a tangled storyline.
It's kind of weird now that I think about it. Of the 3 heroines, one is Captain Marvel, the other is Miss Marvel, and the other is Monica Rambeau, and it's called The Marvels.
Is she going to be called? Photon in this?
Well, because it's I have no idea.
No idea.
But that's the name of the character, right?
Ugh.
But yeah, like I don't. Again, that's kind of part of the problem, right? Is people don't really know who these characters are. This one really doesn't.
Well,
have
this is part of the list of things working against them. It's just like, this is not good, guys. We don't know what the fuck's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I find the premise bizarre. When
It is
you
a
use
very
your
strange
power,
one.
you switch places. That's a weird premise for a movie, but
Well, like, you know, if no heroes had died and we were really healthily going along in the middle of the MCU's Phase 3, we had a movie where Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Daredevil were going to team up. You could easily come up with a name that sort of recognizes that trinity of, you know, street level, low tech combat with super high tech billionaire man and then magic man. It's like, oh, that's interesting, and they all have their hero names, and it's like that would generate shit tons of hype, and the combination's so cool. None of that is working for this. People don't even know who these people are. I mean,
especially if the idea is that they're meant to be essentially, it's kind of interesting that you point that out. Having characters who have very disparate sort of power sets and putting them together is kind of interesting compared to putting together characters with similar power sets.
And the quintessential Fantastic Four. They're all totally different.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And X-Men, they've all got...
X-Men,
but
yeah.
Then again, X-Men has, because it's something that I really like, I think it's one of the things that X-Men's always had working in favor of it, is that it's not like strictly beneficial necessarily. A lot of these powers, there's usually, unless you Storm basically has like the best powers.
You can just control the weather.
It's kind of incredible, yes.
But like
that people,
the vast majority of them have some kind of like trade-off that's, you know, like Cyclops can shoot lasers out of his eyes, but he also can never not shoot lasers out of his eyes. You know?
Wolverine has like adamantium claws, super fast regeneration, but he's Canadian.
Yeah, you have to have drawbacks.
It hurts, but you know, there's that. But also that he outlives and outlasts everybody that he cares about.
I forget where I read this now, and that's why I want to be like careful saying it, because it's very mean if not true. But I'm pretty sure it's true, and I wonder if you've ever heard of it, Frankie. But Halle Berry getting convinced to
I heard about this.
Be a part. Was it just be a part of X-Men 3, or was it something else?
I think I think it was that there was stipulations that she wanted in the story to be a part of X-Men 3, and they said, yeah, we'll do that, and then didn't, but I don't know if that's true. I've heard about this, though.
Yeah, well, so the story that I heard, don't know if true, was that there was going to be a scene where she provided a shit ton of rain to, like, certain African countries or whatever. So, like, which sounds awkward and clunky as a scene in terms of trying to... That might be kind of something you don't want to go near with Storm, because it'll make you ask a lot of questions about her, right? Like, should she be heading to every bad weather event and like, just undoing it and then moving things to other things? But as far as I'm aware, that something like that was promised and then it wasn't at all done.
Yeah, but
that seems like the kind of thing that could get them in legal trouble if they had signed off on it and she didn't get it.
That's what loopholes are for.
I think the idea would be that you could always say, yeah, but I mean, there's changes in the script. That's always a part of the process of filmmaking. So, you know. But like I said, I don't know how true that is, but I did hear about that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But she did get to be Catwoman, so, you know.
This really is like a weird team-up movie, isn't it, compared to like other team-ups that would be more interesting to see.
Two people I don't know anything about, and one person that I just like actually hate.
It's a crazy thing to think about, that this is kind of the first movie of this kind. The others will have guest stars. This feels like a team. You know how there's loads of teams across Marvel Comics history, right, where different characters got together. Yeah, and it was a cool thing in the in Ultimate Alliance and probably other games where if you made your squad comprised of a particular team from the comic books, you get a bonus. It would be like a plus something toward, and it's whatever that team did, and it's just like, oh, sweet. Reference and a tangible benefit. And yeah, this is just like, this is the first one. It's like, this is the team, the Marvels. It's like, what do you...
Oh, and then, of course, bearing in mind that the second one is the Thunderbolts, comprised primarily of just people who are, like, super soldiers or normal people.
Does it not feel like the Thunderbolts in the MCU listings are basically comprised of... what's the word for this? When you are creating a product, like byproducts?
Yeah, the byproducts of other films, and they're like, oh,
it's
fuck
like,
it.
They should be called the byproducts, like that's a team name.
It's all they have left, because they killed off a lot of the other villains that they could have had as a team.
They should have called them the Expendables.
The thing is, like, why aren't there just more like, if it's really hard and expensive to get team up movies for whatever reason, why not just do what Deadpool? Even though, you know, we'll see how I feel
People
about
say
that movie when it comes out.
the Leftovers
Yeah.
would be a great team name.
The Leftovers.
But like, you know, why isn't there just like your buddy team up movies like Deadpool and Wolverine going on an adventure? But you know, like you do
Yeah.
it with other characters. I mean, an obvious pairing is Daredevil and Punisher, which I mean, they did. The problem is, I don't even know how much of that's going to be canon whenever they bring forward, whatever the hell they're going to do with that show anyway. But like, why aren't there more of those sort of pairings?
When
in
you
the
want,
MCU?
I know it's so much to ask because
Yeah, like
we had a lot of
Hulk
Iron
and
Man
Gandhi.
anyway. The nature of having Iron Man and Doctor Strange having we got a little bit of it, but like a whole movie with them fucking hating each other and by the end working together to defeat maybe the Mandarin or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one's
exactly.
technology, one's magic. They both have clashing personalities, but they're both good people at heart, and so we get to see them, you know, that develop. That's like something interesting. That
And the
I would
actual
like to
Mandarin,
see.
not whatever the fuck.
No, not Goober Mandarin from
Goober
Iron Man 3.
Okay.
Anyway.
Then eyebrows were raised again when DaCosta began working on another film while the Marvels were still in post-production. The filmmaker moved to London earlier this year to begin prepping for her Tessa Thompson drama Heather, or Heather maybe. A representative for DaCosta declined to comment.
I've seen a few people say this is normal. I don't know if I buy that. Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
It's
normal.
complicated, right?
If it is normal, is that part of the problem?
Something we know, it's I'm not gonna say fun fact. It's complicated. While working on Schindler's List, Spielberg was editing Jurassic Park, right?
That's true. Yes, because it came out a year apart.
But that might work if you're fucking Steven
if you're Steven Spielberg. Well, that's the thing.
I guess the thing would be, do you? Because you could think about it. Was Quentin Tarantino in any way, shape, or form in active pre-production of one of his films while he was like editing one of his other films? You know, is that something that he's ever done?
It's I guess all I want to say is just that like we don't know the context exactly of this, but it's not. I don't think it could ever be seen as a plus. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because Steven Spielberg would have been working like 18, 20 hours a day, probably, like with all of that. And he's Steven Spielberg.
He is Steven Spielberg. He's kind of the person most associated with film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a certain vibe there where it's like, just doesn't seem like that's the way to do it. But you know.
Let's see. I'll just finish because this first one's short. If you're directing a $250 million movie, it's kind of weird for the director to leave with a few months to go, says a source familiar with the production.
And that there's a lot of weight on the word leave. It depends on what that means exactly. Because like, how involved is she? Or is she just gone?
I mean, I got to imagine that she's still somewhat involved, right? But I guess
Also,
not.
I was actually going to go both directions
just...
with that. That on one hand. On the other hand, it's Marvel. Maybe she is just out, you know? Like, because they don't need her. They're like, you're done. Your casting job is complete.
Good. You've shot the movie, sort of. We'll take it from here.
We'll take it from here,
yeah,
exactly.
Which is weird, but...
Whoa, and didn't she recently say in an interview that is... Oh, damn, I'm pretty sure that I saw something where she basically said... Even as the director, you're not like fully in charge on a Marvel production.
Yeah.
Ah, damn. Let me see if I can.
Well, and some people saying she left before shooting was completed as well.
Really?
Uh-oh.
If that's true, of course, yeah. There's more. But again, this to be fair, this is probably not any different than how they've made most of their Phase 4 and 5 stuff.
Probably, yeah. This might just be the first time we hear about it.
I mean, well, it's not even really, is it? Like, the directors have not felt very directory with a lot of their films, from what we get of the few pieces of information.
Well, yeah, that's okay. So, damn. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, so the quote was, "It's a Kevin Feige production. It's his movie." So I think you live in that reality. But I tried to go in with the knowledge that some of you was going to take a back seat. It's just an interesting statement.
Not a great attitude to have if you're the director.
There was,
you want to be the one to decide whose creative, elements, come in.
There was a comment of like viral tweets about how we need to start letting the artists, take full control and all that stuff. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure, if not full control, close to it, got us Love and Thunder, and it got us Ahsoka, right? These are projects created by creators that basically got everything they wanted. Maybe they didn't care, or maybe they have something that we don't tend to agree with in terms of what they want. It's just like, are we ever gonna... is it almost impossible, I guess, to get to the point of just simply saying, we need to hire people who know how to write? It's like, because that seems like a, we need good stuff to make things good. You know what I mean? Like, it's too almost ethereal as a solution. Like, you can't really do anything with that. It's like, well, yeah, we're hiring people who we do think can write. You're like, oh, well.
You have to be able to, you have to be able to recognize what the quality is before you can, it's like if you don't know what a chair looks like, how are you supposed to like construct a chair? Like someone like sort of describes to you, like through voice, like what a chair kind of is supposed to be, and you just sort of hope for the best. Anyway, the Marvels has, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, go for it.
The Marvels has seen its release date move back twice, too. Once to swap places with Quantumania, which was deemed further along, and again when its debut shifted from July to November to give the filmmakers more time to tinker. We're the alternate world where the Marvels is already out, and by many, many months' time. But that extra time didn't necessarily help. In June, Marvel, which traditionally only solicits feedback from Disney employees and their friends and family, took the uncharacteristic step of holding a public test screening in Texas. The audience gave the film middling reviews.
It doesn't surprise me. I don't think it was ever going to get more than middling, and it's not due to the fact that I despise Captain Marvel so much that it couldn't possibly be good. It's like, no, it's just the way that they create films. We've seen it. In Phase 4 and 5. That formula, you'll be lucky to ever produce a great film out of that.
Yeah, that awful pattern that we see just keeps on going. They haven't made anything good, and I mean, Andor was the one shining example of that, and it's definitely it's like its own thing. It doesn't even belong.
Well, we also have the information on why Andor was so different. Tony Gilroy was like sent off to make it with money. And then
he's talented and gave a shit.
And then they had a break, and he redrafted the scripts. I still can't get over that. It blows my mind that he's like, I have free time, I shall redraft.
I will work on my movie like I care.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It is indeed.
But Marvel has never been in the business of being average. Kevin's real...
True, they're not that good.
Quote, Kevin's real superpower, his genius, has always been in post-production and getting his hands on movies and making sure they finish strongly. The source adds. These days, he's spread thin. Feige declined to comment for this story. So, I think that's the difference. In the mainstream circles, it's, Marvel was pretty consistently okay, whereas our perspective is not really. Like, I mean, it's just that they used to occasionally make good films.
Well, when a lot of the times when their films were bad... They didn't make anyone angry or bored.
Well, Iron Man 3 made a lot of people angry, to be fair.
Yeah, I guess so.
But Age of Ultron I would say that's controversial, of course.
Ultron, yeah.
But like when I watch Age of Ultron, I'm like, oh, there's like things in here to like, and there's some neat stuff, and so it's not like you don't like walk away from it going like, wow, what a massive pile of shit.
No, yeah, we would definitely concede it's a different kind of bad at this point.
Yeah,
compared to what it was.
Yes. And I guess the more relevant part would be that Marvel used to have the capacity to make good films and even great films. Now it's like, that seems like an impossibility.
I find it interesting, too, about the whole formula that we get running with Kevin and everything else. It's like, Phase 4 was also just happened to be the first in-universe recognition and celebration of said formula. Look at it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like when it was fully refined, understood, and sort of kind of made fun of, is when we're like, yeah, the formula, and then it's just like crashing down around you as well. And it's like, I don't think there's ever a formula that keeps you going forever. We're not, unless you want Marvel to be like a soap opera, but they don't make Marvel money, okay? Like that's because they're not supposed to. Feige isn't the only person showing signs of strain. Marvel's entire VFX battalion, including staffers and vendors, is struggling to keep pace with a never-ending stream of productions. Yeah, that's one of the things that would have been like highlighted for criticism almost immediately by the public, or at least by us, right? Like being like, fucking hell, they're making shit tons of things. And then it wasn't even just that they're making shit tons of things, it was making stuff on characters and storylines that no one gives a fuck about, which is unusual. Not like a guarantee of bad, of course, just unusual. This past February, when the credits rolled at the world premiere of Quantumania, shock rippled through the Regency Village Theatre in Westwood as over some shoddy CGI. There were at least 10 scenes where the visual effects had been added at the last minute and were out of focus, says one veteran power broker who was there. Quote, "It was insane. I've never seen something like that in my entire career. Everyone was talking about it. Even the kids of executives were talking about it." We know exactly what they're talking about, too.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Let's
was-
be
I
honest.
mean-
If that movie had great CGI, like it wouldn't have. No one that people wouldn't have been like, "Oh, I care now."
What a great movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We talked about this before.
Yeah.
The great things with bad CG, people usually go, yeah, I know. Yeah, whatever. Whatever. It's fine. And they released Cassie's Run as a separate thing on YouTube. Well, like, look at that. It's great, isn't
yeah,
it?
they thought that was good enough. But I mean, really, it is incredible the idea that you're handing in shots like that close to the film. To the fact that there are now like post-launch patches for films to like fix them up. That's
Mhm.
wild.
Yeah, nowadays it used to be like, "Oh, there's a car in the Shire. We'd better fix that up really quick." And now it's just like, "Oh God, our CGI is horrific."
We have to fucking deliver our shots and then do a post-launch patch to fix it up.
Yeah, the day one patch thing is so funny.
Yeah, don't go see a movie on day one. Wait for the
No,
patch.
wait
in
for
the
the patch.
theaters.
Yeah.
Dude, the crazy thing of... so I still feel like I haven't had a good explanation of what the fuck happened with Across the Spider-Verse having different scenes depending on where you saw it or
man.
when.
I
That
mean,
one's crazy. And the fact that on the Blu-ray, apparently some scenes aren't on there that were in theaters. They're just gone.
that baffles me, but then when you combine it with the story of intense crunch and everything like that and all the behind-the-scenes production troubles there, and the fact that the next one, I think, is now indefinitely delayed because it's like
far as I know.
not anywhere near done, that some lines were finished like a couple of weeks before it came out. Like, that seems like that one was raced to the finish line as well.
Yeah. Where are we
Riggs.
at?
All
The
right,
schedule
let me
swap.
see. Is it schedule or schedule?
Oh, I said schedule.
I say schedule. I say schedule
think-
here.
I
so-
say
They're both
sketch,
fine.
but you're allowed to say
Yeah.
both.
Schedule.
We're,
Yeah,
we're,
but
we're
it's-
open-minded
Oh.
people here.
That's all right. The schedule swap with The Marvels had left the Ant-Man sequel in a squeeze, pushing up its post-production schedule by 4.5 months.
Oh,
That's
gotta
why it
hit.
turned out so great.
yeah.
Yeah, being told, yeah, you've got 4.5 months less to work on.
Which they're already screwed for time, so yeah.
Mhm.
Marvel films are known for coming down to the wire, given Feige's ability to foam the runaway and land a plane that way, says one executive familiar with how the company operates. But this level of unfinished was unprecedented and would be noted in scathing reviews when the tentpole with the $200 million budget opened 11 days after the premiere. Critics weren't the only ones dismayed. Fed up with 14-hour days and no overtime, which seems literally illegal to me, Marvel VFX workers voted unanimously to unionize in September, sparking an industry-wide trend.
Yeah, they're not the only ones.
Isn't it
It's,
crazy
it's
that-
getting around?
If the higher-ups were, like, terrified of the idea of them unionizing, and it's just like, maybe you shouldn't have treated them like shit, then they probably wouldn't have, at least not for as
If
fast.
if you make them work 14 hours a day and you fucking pay them gold bars, that would be one thing.
Right.
But like, man, the 14-hour days and no
Well, and
overtime
remember,
pay, which is
14 hours
I don't
a
know how they got
day,
away with that.
6 days a week for like months at a time. It's,
and then it's
the
like
same as
the
like
product
crunch in the
turns out to
video
be
game
shit.
industry.
Like at the
Of course,
end.
There's,
So it's not even like, well, we worked our asses off to make something amazing. It's like, no, it's just I don't
Well, I
know
mean-
how you could be in that industry and be like, yeah, it's just another job.
I mean, isn't it just like a documented, established, accepted fact that like when human beings start working like a certain amount, their productivity decreases to the point that if they actually just work normal hours, they'd be more productive?
Yeah, I think so. I
Like,
think there's
where
only
it's-
so much you could, put someone to work
Yeah.
before they get bored or they want to do something else or they get tired or fed up with it. And
Well, it's just that it becomes harder for them to work because they're tired. Like they're just really, really, really tired. But like, yeah, I mean, people working 14 hours a day, like 6-7 days a week for several months on end is insane. It's absurd. It's ridiculous.
And it's doubly
but
weird
I
when
mean,
you spend this kind of money on a movie and it doesn't look good. Like that should be like what isn't that what the money pays for it to look good?
Yeah,
You
but
would
the
think that
problem
there's
is
a direct correlation between spending money and how it looks.
the problem is that there are only so many VFX workers. There's only so much time in the day, and there are many, 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 many projects. It's like a matter of just being like stretched completely thin. Because I mean, at this point, like the majority of productions have like some kind of post-production visual effects. Even things that you wouldn't expect, like I guess contemporary non-superhero, non-like action movies will just have visual effects for like backgrounds or even the
It's
sky to
practically
make it look
exponential, isn't it, with movie making? Because it can solve basically any problem visually.
yeah, like if you're shooting on a day and it's cloudy, you can just make it look sunny. Like that's something you can do. But I mean, that's all work, and it's not easy work. It's time consuming work. Even simple things like that. It's not like the problem is that there is too much work and there's not enough people and time in the day, and it seems like basically it gradually got to the point where it got this insane, and it's kind of like the dam is bursting. It's now gotten to the point where it's like, all right, this is like absurd and unacceptable. And yeah, now that because it's not just the Marvel guys, isn't it? Like Disney in-house's VFX is voted to unionize. That like it's starting to, yeah, it's things are changing. Things be changing in the in that world.
Yeah,
Seemingly,
we won't.
yes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with it. Who knows? I mean,
Oh
we
yeah, and
have
the
a
other
while.
thing that was talked about as well is constantly changing their minds. Like it's one thing if you keep telling them, nah, change it. Nah, you don't like that. Do it again. There's a difference between very deliberate, planned, consider. I mean, Avatar 2, not a very good movie at all. It looks incredible, and it's like
Looks
why
insane, yeah.
with the VFX artists, some of whom would have ended up working on some of these projects that don't look very good at all. It's like it's not a lack of talent on their part, is it? It's a matter of an understanding and consideration and respect for the tools and the time needed to get the results that they got for that movie. But yeah. Okay, so the year 2023 was the straw that broke the camel's back, says former Marvel Studios VFX assistant coordinator Anna George, who appeared before the Congressional Labor Caucus on October 19th to testify about the studio's untenable deadlines and working conditions. Quote, the pay and long hours at Marvel were the reason we had to start our unionization process there. The conditions were completely unsustainable. I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, by the sounds of it, almost certainly.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd have to do to get me to want to work in that industry. There's just
Well,
there's no way.
What amount of money could you pay me that's like within the realm of even like normalcy that would get me to work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week on these types of projects,
You're essentially saying, what number do I have to write on this check for you to hate yourself? And
Yeah,
I'm
for you
like,
to
I
completely
just don't know if there's a number.
or just to completely sacrifice your life for these projects.
Which is also kind of nuts because there's such an enormous amount of people who are looking to start up, working in places like that. They're like, let's go, let's do it, and it's like, oh.
Well, it's been spoken about in the gaming industry, right? That the industry is kind of running on plucky
as a meat
newbies
grinder
coming into the industry, excited about video games, and a lot of them get destroyed by it.
Yeah, there's so many examples of like people joining big companies that make games, finding out, oh, this is miserable and I hate myself, and then they find or make little groups, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah,
Hopefully that ends up working.
It's interesting how many people who were like creative directors who presumably get what you would imagine is the dream job of being the person in charge of the creative aspects of a massive video game, who then decide, nah, you know what, I want to make it with a team of like 20 or 30 people.
Me and six of my blokes, we're gonna go make an indie game.
That's happened a surprising number of times.
It happens all the time. You hear about it all the time.
And it's talked about, right, is aside from the fact that destroying people in this way to fucking make these projects is absurd anyway, even from like a purely ruthless business standpoint, you're losing the future leaders of the industry. You're losing a lot of potential in these people. So even if you put to one side that these are human beings, and you're just thinking strictly about what's gonna, if you think about what's gonna make you money in the future, this is a completely unsustainable and stupid way of doing things.
And not to sound callous, but like it's not even like worth it in terms of it's not even producing good stuff.
No, I mean yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah, like
Ant-Man
throwing
looks
their
crap,
souls
but
into a machine that
yeah.
produces movies that are kind of crap. It's like, well then,
Yeah, we didn't even like make something amazing and legendary that will stand the test of time that we can be proud of.
exactly. It's not one of those uplifting stories where you can at least look back and go, we created something great though. Like what, because working on
Yeah.
Star Wars right
That's a
down
thought,
to the wire
though.
for the OG Star Wars.
I was telling you about the Friday the 13th filming story where a guy almost went blind for like 6 months. I wonder if Friday the 13th hadn't turned out to be so profitable and instead was considered like a really shit movie that was just crap and everyone hated it, and the production like that is like a tone description of that experience. On one hand, it's like the sacrifices I made to, really get this film going, and how plucky our attempts and scrappy the whole thing was, and we got there, versus being like, it was miserable, horrible, I was taken advantage of, I would never work with those people again. They were, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if the line between those two is down to almost how successful the film is sometimes.
Yeah, or something that you can be like proud of even. There's never that, well, at least at the end. It's like, well, at least we can say that we made something incredible and amazing. And like, I mean, I'm sure Vigo is totally fine. He broke his toe for, the Two Towers. I'm sure like that's something is, that's one thing instead of I lost my arm for Batwoman.
Right. Well, yeah, and so some people are asking me what I'm talking about. There was a character who gets stabbed in the eye in the first Friday the 13th movie, and the prosthetic they had for him poured liquid that had Kodak fluid in it to make the right viscosity that went into his eye, and he went blind in that eye for a while. He said it took 6 months for his full vision to come back in that eye. So it was like, shit, man.
Well, I think one of the more famous examples is Jack Haley, who some of you might know as the actor for Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. And I think he died from complications of... No, it was someone else. I think it was the original. They had there was something about the Tin Man's makeup, the silvery makeup on him, that was like toxic and like got through his skin and stuff. And something like that. So, actually, now that I think about it, The Wizard of Oz is an incredible example because the working conditions while making that film were fucking atrocious.
Well,
Judy Garland was like on crack, and the sets were insanely hot.
Yeah, that's famous.
There was, famously miserable production to make, but at least it made The Wizard of Oz the most famous movie of all time. So.
Where are we? Is it me on Disney's Top Brass?
Yes.
Disney's Top Brass, including newly returned CEO Bob Iger. I think it's funny that it would even be worth mentioning as if that wasn't all a part of some plan, like him to pop out and pop back in. It was so brief, and like I imagine there were several legal things that happened as a result of it that were useful, but yeah, I just find it funny.
Behind the scenes, all the
Newly returned CEO Bob Iger was said to be apoplectic, right? I've heard that word before. I feel like Simpsons used that before. Or maybe
probably
Blackadder. About Marvel's VFX troubles. 1 month after the Quantumania premiere debacle, the guillotine fell on Victoria Alonso, who oversaw... It's funny you say that. Who oversaw the studio's physical production, post-production, VFX, and animation. While the reason cited for her abrupt firing was her unauthorized role as an executive producer on the Oscar-nominated film Argentina, 1985, insiders say Disney was incensed that quality control in its Marvel productions was plummeting. I find that so funny. Yes, obviously.
We can tell. We're insiders have given us this knowledge. Thank you, insiders, for letting us know that their films are shit.
Particularly on the ever-expanding TV front. That's also funny. I don't know that I think the TV shows were like significantly worse than the movies.
No, I don't think so. I found it annoying when there was that stuff that was coming out of like, oh yeah, Marvel realizes they've screwed up on the TV front. It's like, see, you're doomed. You don't know. You don't understand.
If a doctor can't diagnose the condition, how do you expect to treat it?
Exactly. And when you're there, like, yes, it's the TV side where we screwed up, not the movies.
Yeah, the movies are great. It's like, guys, you're fucked.
What's funny to me too is that you can get away with shittiest VFX, I think, on TV shows compared to movies. Because
I think so too.
People will be like, "Well, it's a TV show. Come on."
I mean, ain't no one going to a theater to see like the TV shows, and that all automatically helps. Like,
Definitely an aspect.
there's
Yeah.
just this attitude that's sort of different, you know. I mean, you still expect a certain amount of quality, but yeah, I think you're right. I think TV shows can sort of get away with it a bit more.
Unless it's She-Hulk, and well, it's not even that. It's just that it was.
You were gonna say unless it was Ahsoka.
The problem with She-Hulk is that if she's the main character and she's just weird to look at.
Yeah,
Like,
that
that's-
was.
I said
was
it
a
before, and
terrible
I hold
idea.
to it. They should have found a big lady and painted her green.
That was almost certainly never even entertained. Though,
I
as a-
don't even
as an
think they would ever have done that. No, this
No.
But I suppose the funny thing is, can you imagine the budget comparison of the cost of those two things?
Well, yeah, I mean, that'd shave off a good $100 million.
And imagine,
probably, right?
wouldn't it have been fun if the transformation was a shot of Tatiana Maslany going, "Urgh," and then a quick like zoom, and she's just her with green going, "Urgh," and then the clothes start to rip, and then it just cuts to or a poof of smoke, and it's that other actress who's really big.
Basically, what they did in
Yeah.
the '70s show.
But like, I feel like there would be a sense from a lot of audience members being like, "Ah, I kind of like it."
It's throwback and it's funny and
Yeah.
It's no homage.
And I think people would be okay with that to some extent. I mean, obviously,
something to it. Yeah.
it would probably be scrutinized and made fun of if it were a part of a show that's just plain awful. But if it was part of a show that was well written and fourth wall breaky and fun, like, yeah.
What? But not.
But
what,
not
you mean
that.
Not like the fourth wall breaky, but terrible show that
Yes.
we got. Yeah.
The VFX logjam had been evident for some time, with some final effects for such Disney Plus series as WandaVision and She-Hulk Attorney at Law inserted after their streaming debuts. That Alonso was busy promoting her art house project while Rome Byrne certainly didn't sit well with Disney leadership. Alonso Attorney says her client is unable to comment.
Oh my god, nobody can comment on this story.
Because they wouldn't want to. I guess it's just not worth it, is it?
Probably not a good idea. Yeah,
She-Hulk will be
whatever.
dispatched to their house and she will step on them. All right, moving on. Let's see. Scroll down. But some internal sources suggest Alonso was a scapegoat and point to the She-Hulk VFX issues as a symptom of a deeper rot, namely a lack of oversight on script development.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Good
Oh,
lord.
man.
Could it be?
could it be? Could it be?
Is it possible?
In the original arc of She-Hulk, a flashback of star Tatiana Maslany's transformation into her Hulk character didn't take place until episode 8, the
Which makes a
penultimate
lot more
episode.
sense. That makes a lot more sense when you think about it, because that adheres way
it
more
does.
to the general structure of these Marvel TV shows.
I remember talking
Instead
about
of
it
them,
at the time, and
splitting it so quick.
if you look back on the episode, the clunkiness of almost the pacing of it is like interesting to see the cuts and pastes where they likely were.
But after Marvel's Brain Trust watched footage, it realized the scene needed to happen. But after Marvel's Brain Trust watched footage, it realized the scene needed to happen in the pilot episode so that audiences could see more of the character's backstory early.
Could you?
Well, no,
could
you could have the
imagine-
backstory without the
Necessary,
transformation.
yeah.
Can you imagine being among, let's just say it's 20 people in a special viewing of, you have to watch, let's say, episodes 1 through 4 or so. Fuck it, the whole thing. You just do, it's your job, whatever. And it's like, what do you think? And you're sitting there going like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, you've got a list of just all the most horrible writing choices, all this other. And then most of the people in the room just agree, I don't understand how She-Hulk was She-Hulk, though. Don't you think you should put her origin first? I would just
And
be
then
sitting
they
there
were
like,
like,
that
what?
is not the problem. That's not even
Yeah,
close
like-
to the problem.
But you guys,
If
I
you
know, this is
endear
what-
me to the character and then later we learn the backstory, some might say that there's a lot more merit to that concept. Because I don't really care necessarily about the backstory to some random stranger more than I do the backstory about someone I kind of have been, enamored with or that I care about or I'm interested in.
well, it's interesting that this theory didn't apply. We didn't see how Moon Knight got his powers until like the penultimate episode, and nobody cared. That didn't really matter. Remember, we didn't see how he
Doesn't it-
got the Moon Knight.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, it just feels like sometimes their brain trust, just give them random shit advice.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's like I said, I think they're doomed. The fact that they were watching that and they were like, the problem with this script, the problem with the writing here is we didn't see how she got her powers, and we need to move that forward. The fact that that's like the mode of their thinking means, oh yeah, you guys have no idea.
You know why
You're
it's
doomed.
it's taken well too? Is probably like and actually changes that it's actionable. Like, oh, that is a problem I can solve. You guys have highlighted as a problem. I can solve it. Great. It's like,
Yep.
This is like
Problem solved.
it's like hiring a painter to look at a house that's about to fall down, and they're like, "Well, you see
But which color?
the shutters, the color of the shutters kind of clashes with the paneling on the side, you
One of the
know,
walls just falls off on
as
the
it's
side.
falling down." And then they're like, "Now, oh God, the living room. Oh my God, you can't have a rug that color with a beige
That's
wall.
it, it's the
That's
rug.
unbelievable."
Mhm.
And the house has just collapsed.
Next
That meant
up.
that the VX team was tasked with fixing the mess in post-production.
I'm sure they were.
Yeah, that's why it looks so great.
yeah. You know what's funny too
Um,
is the catching up of it being like, oh, let's keep fixing it. We'll keep day 2 patch, day 3 patch. Eventually, it's like, just leave it. You got to fix the next thing. We can't.
Exactly. You're
The
out
new
of time.
fucker is coming out. We got to get on that. Like, oh, okay.
Okay. The so-called bad VFX we see was because of half-baked scripts. I mean, that was probably part of it, but there was also just the fact that trying to achieve Hulk on a television show budget as well as television show timescale was probably just a bad idea from the start.
Well, didn't She-Hulk have a
Yeah.
massive budget though?
Yeah, but again, it's comparable to the budget of a film stretched across more than 2 hours of story. You know what I mean? Like, even though
I
it
mean,
is still a
that's-
big budget for a television show, it's still a greater quantity of screen time that you need to create content for.
As much as I agree with you, I still think there's what you said in addition is the main problem. It's just the time frame.
Yes, that absolutely. Like, more time, you could probably get a better result than that.
Because there are films that are half the length of She-Hulk that likely wouldn't have anywhere near its budget. That look way, you know what I mean? Like it's just.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't think it's a very good film, but the creator was on a budget of like $80 million. And that film looks way better than anything Marvel's put out in the last few years. And it's just knowing how to use the tools for sure.
Someone gave
says
a
one-
super chat. I just wanted to read. They mentioned, I don't think we have seen how Tom Holland Spider-Man got his powers.
That's true.
Which is
We
true.
didn't-
We never saw.
As far as I remember, was gonna happen, or at least closer to it with a prequel animated TV show or something, right? But that got scrapped.
I don't
that?
know if that's happening. Yeah, that's right.
They had a little
I
like
remember that.
graphic for it, and I'm pretty, you know,
That's probably not happening.
Probably
That's
not.
probably not happening. The so-called bad VFX we see was because of half-baked scripts, says one person involved with She-Hulk. Quote, that is not Victoria, that's Kevin. And even above Kevin, those issues should be addressed in pre-production. The timeline is not allowing the Marvel executives to sit with the material. Yeah, I mean, sure.
It's it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because they're just permanently behind schedule. And what's funny, I guess, is if you knocked out a couple of projects and took that time and added it to the rest, you might be able to at least level out. And
yeah,
because we talk about the VFX being awful as a big indicator of things going wrong, and it's just like, well, ultimately, as we've said, wouldn't matter at all if the scripts were top notch. Nobody would really care that much. We would be talking about it. We'd be like, how come their CG is so fucking bad in these great films? It's like, I don't know. I guess they're rushed, but it just wouldn't have as much of an impact.
Mm-hmm. But when there's nothing, when it's just really bad,
Yeah.
then what do you have left other than wow, and it looks awful too.
Well, and especially
and it's not
the
interpreted.
key jangling and spectacleness of the films, a lot of it is dependent on the quality of the CG at that point. You can't blow people away when it's like a fucking MODOK face is heading into the screen. It's like, what is that? Like,
Are you surprised to see me? Yes.
yes.
I'm surprised to see whatever this is, and I'm looking at. Yes.
All the while, Marvel was bleeding money with a single episode of She-Hulk costing some $25 million, dwarfing the budget of the final season episode of HBO's Game of Thrones, which is absolutely fucking nuts.
It's
And recall
unbelievable.
that the entire budget for the first season of House of the Dragon, 10 episodes, that was $200 million. So that was $20 million an episode for
Well, and
that
they
whole
spent
show. And
that money.
shows- Yeah,
Those
absolutely.
dragons
The
look
show
fucking
looks
great.
incredible.
Point
And
out
those
another
are
show.
incredible episodes, except for one of them.
Mhm.
The
So-
Last of Us season 1, I think, had $100 million for the budget for the whole season. That was 9
And it looks
episodes.
Damn good.
The sets were
Yes, it
so
does.
wonderful to look at because you're like, oh my god,
The
it's
zombies
real.
look great.
It's
They looked
real.
amazing.
Like,
And a lot of it was like good makeup and shit, and a lot of the sets. Yeah, like it's all just looks so real, so good.
$25 million an epic. You could make one Five Nights at Freddy and make way more.
yes. Oh, they must be so fucking annoyed when they
let
see
me
stuff like
check.
that.
Five
They're like, well, that
Nights
could have been
at
us. Damn it.
Five
Freddy's
Nights at Freddy was
budget,
25 million.
20
and I think-
million.
yeah.
Well, and it's
wow,
gonna make
even
shit
less than
tons,
that.
right? Already
Yeah, 20.
has.
Well, it's again. I'll keep pointing it out. Like fucking Bloom. He's the guy who figured out. He figured out how to make money off of like everything.
Well, and Five Nights at
$20
Freddy's are just
million.
waiting, wasn't it? It's like I'm
was
perfect for you,
waiting
you're
for
perfect
it.
for me. Let's go. Like we'll
Yeah.
make a millions.
Because it. And bear in mind that this film was simultaneously released on streaming as well, and it made $160 million. It's only been out for
Jeez.
what, a week?
I'm telling you,
I know,
man, we get those video game movies. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
get ready.
Mario.
I hope they're good.
Well, I mean, remember, Mario movie cost $100 million, and it made what 1.3 billion. You know, meanwhile, fucking the Marvels cost like what 150% that.
Like 2.5 that, yeah.
What was that?
Um,
They'll lose it all on the sequel. I would assume this will stay pretty profitable for at least 3 films.
Oh, Five Nights at Freddy. They're not going to
It's
lose all that
gonna-
money on the sequel.
Yeah,
No
it'll
way.
be like there'll be
another one
10 of them,
make
and they'll all
money.
make
Yeah.
money.
And they'll come out every year. It'll be the new Saw.
Yep.
It'll be the new Saw.
While
New
Saw is
Paranormal
desperately trying to crawl its way back into being the Saw films. It's like, look, we're here too.
Mm-hmm.
But without a similar zeitgeist bang, the August 2022 series premiere at the El Capitan Theatre foreshadowed what was to come 6 months later at the Quantumania Bow. The She-Hulk special effects were out of focus in multiple scenes.
Imagine that. Yeah, we're going to the premiere for our new show, and then you're sitting there watching
Yeah.
incomplete. Like,
It's,
okay.
what are you supposed to make of that? I guess you'd be told, like there'd be some announcement being like, some things are not
Oh,
completely
yeah,
fit. It's just like, but that's okay.
But
But that's
the
what
thing.
but that's your job.
It's the premiere. Like, it should be done, right?
Yeah, like this is it.
Coming out.
This is what we're here. We're here to see the movie.
Mhm.
Where's the movie? Let's see. There are signs that the flood of market, that the flood of product. Why did I say market? I don't know. There are signs that the flood of product is leading people to tune out. I'm not prepared to call it a permanent fall, but based on the numbers that go with Marvel podcasts, Marvel-based articles, friends who do Marvel-based video coverage, all of these numbers are significantly down, says Joanna Robinson, co-author of the New York Times bestseller, MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios.
And you know what numbers are up? The ones for coverage that's not positive.
Oh my god.
Why? Why is that
Oh,
happening?
no.
Well, typically you point to a fundamental sense of what you are indeed by connected to, engaged with. And it's like, yeah, there was a time where it would have been hyper profitable to just be like, every Marvel thing is amazing. Woo! Do you remember I was telling you about it? I can't remember if we watched it on EFAP at all, but there was React streamers who were saying after their first reaction to, or one of them from Ahsoka or Loki or whatever was like, hey, can you guys, not as many people watching our stuff as we're like, what's going on? It's like, well, yeah.
Okay. All right.
You have done that yourself.
Yeah, make something better. Like, instead of just going, woo, every time anything happens.
Joanna Robinson's a writer and podcaster at The Ringer. The quality is suffering. In 2019, at the peak, if you put Marvel Studios in front of something, people were like, oh, that brand means quality. That association is no longer the case because there have been so many projects that felt half-baked and undercooked. Half-baked is undercooked, right?
Yeah, it's
Half-baked and
redundant.
undercooked. Yeah, and they're both food related. They're both
Exactly.
Yeah,
why? Yeah, you're right, Rags. What the hell?
it's redundant
Wait,
and they're
could-
food related.
Because I think you're correct, but you could look at, they could be two different things that they don't necessarily, there's like a Venn diagram between those two, right? Because what if I had perfectly baked half of a thing and the other half wasn't, versus undercooked the whole thing?
It's the same thing both ways. If something is undercooked, then the middle will be raw, and same thing if you half bake something, the middle will be raw. with the dough and everything. So it's pretty much the same thing, almost exactly. Just one is typically with different thing. I guess you could undercook like a soup,
Yeah.
but that's not really what people think about undercooking a soup.
No, when you think about undercooked, you think it's fucking
Meat.
raw.
Yeah, you think about raw meat
Yeah,
or
but
raw
since it's
dough.
metaphorical, right? Like it's like if a line of dialogue was half baked, maybe you'd be arguing that half of it was pretty strong, the other half wasn't. While undercooked, the whole thing is sort of lackluster.
Maybe because like if you half bake something, the outside will probably be fine, and if you undercook something, well, the outside will probably be fine.
And
But that'll be the outside and the outside inside difference. And the process would be kind of the same for both, where they heat from the outside and maybe it does strike me as odd though. Then we have our pictures of Jonathan Majors here. And then we have our Marvels squad. They
I
look
gotta
great.
say,
Captain Marvel's suit looks like shit. Is that what you're gonna
I
say?
think that suit looks awful.
It's so
I think the other one,
and
the
flat.
other one looks way better. The other one that she's wearing in part of the film, evidently, like that one looks way better.
The
It's
original
way,
does look
Yeah.
better. This
This
looks
one-
it looks like Zack Snyder made it.
And then, of course, there is the big problem of why is the logo on Captain Marvel's suit that of like the Empire that took her in and then manipulated her? And
they're
like,
never going to
that she
address
doesn't
that.
do it
Leave her
anymore.
alone.
But yeah, I don't know why. In fact, all of these costumes look pretty bad. Yeah, they all look pretty rough.
not a fan of any of them. They just don't look good. They just look like something
look
you'd buy at a
cheap.
Halloween store for $30.
Monica's look super generic to me.
Yeah,
And the
that
black
one-
and white is not. I don't know if I'm feeling that black and white. It's I don't know. It just doesn't look good. None of them look good.
They look pretty bad.
Yeah, they look pretty bad. And you gotta nail the costumes, guys. Come on. I mean, Kang's looks all right, but
I just
jeez.
don't understand why Captain Marvel's is so desaturated. I don't.
That's the big problem
I
with it.
don't
Yeah.
get-
Yeah, it's so dull.
Why isn't it more
Like I said,
colorful?
it's like
Why
Zack
isn't it like a
Snyder.
bright and bold blue and red?
Well, I mean, it's what she'd
not-
be
but
wearing
not
to a
like
fucking
the-
funeral. Like, you could imagine that if she had to have a super outfit to a funeral.
Mm-hmm. And then there's She-Hulk.
And then there's Jonathan Majors, where the creators of it said it's the best suit in the MCU.
Let's calm
It
down.
looks fine. It looks fine.
Well, the problem is, like, I'm sorry, but Spider-Man's like design is pretty top tier. Like,
It
just
does look really
fundamentally,
good.
like Spider-Man in general. That's like
You don't
a
even
really
need to name the
great
top
suit.
hitters. I feel like he doesn't beat out even Doctor Strange. I really like his outfit.
I don't think he beats out. Yeah, Doctor Strange is cool. I'd say he doesn't beat out Cap's suit in the first Captain America movie.
Probably not, no.
I think that one's
Someone
better. And obviously,
I don't hate it,
like,
it's just...
close.
yeah.
Yeah.
Someone showed me this, and I'm like, I think that there's this minimal kind of quality to a lot of them. Like, I don't think that's great or anything, but it looks fine.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, it's for whatever reason, like, Marvel doesn't like to do them like that. They always have a certain, like, it's what you see in this picture, right? That's like generic, workable Marvel suit, I guess. But yeah,
They try to
I
make
don't
them
know.
overly complex and detailed
They-
some of
well-
the times, and the material and the way that it fits on the body just doesn't.
Lines. There's always just lines going in different directions,
Yeah,
going all over the
I think-
place.
The front of Monica's suit there, it's like you have there's so many lines and so much stuff going on. It's like, just stop. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well,
Just don't
it's
do
like
that.
they're trying to make it look like faux armor, but it doesn't look like armor.
No.
It
But
doesn't look
yeah,
like
but
armor.
you
So
can
why-
make
why
it
would pretend-
armor. You're Disney. Just
Well,
if you want to make it armor, just do it where she's got little bits, or it's like an actual suit, or it has something related to her power. There's something coming out of her back, like a machine, or something on her belt that she uses, or some kind of a visor. Something. Oh yeah, we don't do head stuff. No, we don't do that. Never mind.
Yeah, that's the thing is that at this point I just prefer it if you just don't even have the I saw someone in chat say, "Oh yeah, but Doctor Doom will be taking his helmet off all the time," and the answer is, in my ideal world, he never takes that thing off. It's
No,
on forever.
he's got a metal face.
It's there forever, but it'll be nanotech when he shows up. He'll have a nanotech helmet as well, just like it. So you know what? I prefer that they're not even pretending that these guys are going to wear helmets. That
It was funny, I saw when we were talking about the nature of bringing in Doctor Doom, some people were like, no, don't bring him, they'll ruin him. And I was like, that was under the
No,
specific
in our
pretense of
ideal
them not
world-
ruining it.
of it being amazing. Yeah, that's right. Wait, it's Rags is up next. Oh wait, you just read the last one, didn't you?
let's see.
You,
I think
well,
I had just meant I did something happened.
You mentioned
I
the
was-
half-baked and undercooked.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that I think it was me that just did it.
Okay. Well, as public criticism mounts, Feige is pulling the plug on scripts and projects that aren't working. Case in point, the Blade reboot.
Here we go.
With Mahershala Ali
Whatever's going on with that.
signed on for the eponymous role of a vampire. Things look promising for a 2023 release, but the project has gone through at least 5 writers, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown 6 weeks before production. One person familiar with the script permutation says the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead, a bizarre idea considering
What? Blade, a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons.
a 2-time Oscar winner Ali on board.
Now, this is one of the things that's been contested publicly,
This is
right?
the most contentious one. Yes, this is the most contentious claim. I think it was somebody who worked on the script saying that this was outright false.
Hmm. Well,
So
we already
I have
know
no
that
idea.
Mahershala Ali specifically hated the script to the point where he nearly left the project, right? Whatever it was.
I think that's well. I mean, the thing that cannot be denied is that the project is clearly not in a good way. That they've lost 2
Yeah.
directors.
Let's put it this way: like, it's not important whether or not the script itself had him a 4th lead with a bunch of women talking about life lessons. The more important thing is that Blade isn't being taken seriously whatsoever. That they've had like several different versions that are all horrible. That they have no idea what they're doing. When how do I put this? Having Mahershala Ali and Blade, it's like
I know.
you've got it. That's it.
Like,
And
come on,
how do you screw that up?
nailed it.
Like, just make him kill vampires. That's
Well,
what you gotta do.
how-
gay.
How you screw it up is the same way they screw a lot of them up, where it's like there's really no problem with the casting, the vast majority. It's part of the reason why like Cassie and Ant-Man stands out. It's like, wow, that's like distinctly bad casting. Marvel ain't
Right.
like DC, where they've like repeatedly made mistakes in terms of casting people. Like Marvel tends to get the right people for the job, but then you pair them with some like shitty writer, then like, well, I mean,
yeah,
this
the specifics,
in a bad place.
the specifics being contested. It's like, well, I'm sure. Obviously, Blade being a 4th lead is insane. The women telling you life lessons things sounds embarrassing, but it's just that these are symptoms of the fact that they just they're not taking this seriously, not doing this properly whatsoever. And I'm sure none of the suggested scripts have been very good so far.
I bet you that they were sitting there for a long time, like, well, is it even going to be R-rated? And it's like, well, of course, right?
Ugh,
Right?
The fact that you even ask is...
Yes. And then they're just like, yeah. I mean, they've had to repeatedly assure people, right, of Deadpool 3, and I still wonder if they might be, while they're cutting that film together, going like, Ryan, can you redub some of these lines to not swear, please and thank you? Like, I can easily see them having that conversation. But yeah.
Right. Amid reports that Ali was ready to exit over script issues, Feige went back to the drawing board and hired Michael Green, the Oscar-nominated writer of Logan, to start anew. Speculation around town is that the studio is looking to make the film, now slated for 2025, on a budget of less than $100 million, a deviation from Marvel's big spending strategy.
Wow.
I wouldn't expect Blade to need that high of a budget. It's probably going to be contemporary. A lot of the stuff will be practical.
Why the fuck would any of the projects they've been making need the kind of budgets that, like She-Hulk, Eternian Law needs a gajillion dollars? Like, why? So this is surprising, because it's like, well, they usually overspend. But the thing is, $100 million can have more of an effect than $200 million if it's given to the right people and they're given the right time, right?
Well, yeah,
That's right.
happened.
Well,
Yeah. Plenty.
I mean, remember, Deadpool 1 and 2, I think Deadpool 1 had a budget of like 50 million and Deadpool 2 was something like 100 million. So, it can be, and those aren't like, those have a lot of big, like, explosive action set pieces, so, it can be done.
And as for hiring Michael Green as the writer of Logan, it's like, yeah, whatever creative team creates something like Logan, I can understand why that creative team could give you something strong with a Blade. But at the same time, you just wonder, like, are you casting them, as Gary's always put it, or are you hiring them? Like, are they there because of who they are and what they've done, or are they there because you're actually going to let them create something?
All right, who is next? Actually, let's see.
Mola's next.
That would be weird because I just read that.
Oh wait, I just read the. Didn't I just read the Blade part?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
there's two
No,
blade
no, no.
parts.
You're next, Rags. My bad. Yeah.
But with
I'm
Iger
sorry.
publicly acknowledging the downside of a Marvel TV glut that diluted focus and attention, the keepers of the comic book empire are considering some dramatic moves. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. Because of course.
It's so over. It is so fucking over. It's
We gotta
dead.
go back to Avenger. All of our new characters suck balls and no one likes them. We have to revive Robert Downey Jr.
Dude, you know that they're like, 2012. That was a
those
good
were the
time.
days.
Like, that was when we were going up instead of crashing down.
Jeez, this would include reviving Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, both of whom were killed off in Endgame. That shouldn't be a stumbling block. In comic books, beloved characters are often
shut
killed
up.
off, only to be resurrected thanks to the power of thing like the multiverse.
Yeah.
It's not like that. But the
Shouldn't be a
studio
shock.
shouldn't be a shock. I mean, come on, guys. But the studio hasn't yet committed to the idea. If it were able to bring these actors back, by the way, that's a big fucking if.
And they would cost
big
a
if.
shit ton to get either of them or
Yes.
both.
Oh, Robert Downey Jr. Jeez, what do you have to pay him to come back? He just seems he's done. He's moving on.
Well,
I mean,
and-
he was in Oppenheimer.
So you got Downey Jr., who has publicly stated that he thought his time in the MCU may have killed his ability to act, and that he has no intention of coming back or putting the jersey back on, as he said on Joe Rogan. And then you got Scarlett Johansson that went through a fucking legal battle with Disney.
That's right.
These are the
They
two
shut
people
our
that you want to bring
character.
back. Can you imagine how much they'll cost and what their contracts would say?
Mm-hmm.
Sources say Downey Jr.'s upfront salary for Iron Man 3 was around $25 million.
And that's
So yeah,
not
triple
including
that.
his,
now.
That's not including because he cut a really good deal in terms of getting a percentage of the box office gross that ran throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, man.
He-
Sometimes you got to play that. Well, what was that thing we were talking about once? That it was Batman. Who was it? It was Michael Keaton, wasn't it? Who went for a percentage of the take instead of just.
Oh
a flat...
no! It was Jack Nicholson went for a
Jack
percentage
Nicholson.
of the,
That's it. Yeah,
and
yeah.
the merchandise.
Yeah.
He made so much money. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
He made so much money. That was a smart move.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That's that paragraph done. I'll be right back though.
Okay. But yeah, I could believe that they actually had that conversation. I could totally believe it.
Oh,
What if we
yeah,
brought
easily.
back the original gang. Will that solve Marvel's Majors problem with when the Quantumania actor was arrested in March? Disney executives insisted that they could afford to wait to play a wait-and-see game, given that Avengers: The Kang Dynasty wasn't expected to begin shooting until early 2024. But then Majors was dropped in quick succession by his publicists and managers. He remains a client at WME, the agency where he landed after CAA parted ways with him pre-arrest for his brutal conduct towards staff, says one source. CAA declined to comment. In April, other alleged domestic violence victims of Majors began cooperating with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Then, ahead of a key hearing in October, media outlets including Variety obtained a court filing that referenced a police incident in London involving Majors that led his ex-girlfriend to seek medical attention.
Oh shit!
Making matters even stickier. The ex-girlfriend also worked on Quantumania as a movement coach, and the London incident took place while Majors was shooting season 2 of Loki. On October 25th, a New York judge denied Majors' motion to dismiss the case, which ensures that the actor will stand trial in late November. His legal team is attempting to keep some material of the case sealed.
Yeah, so, to be, we always got to put to one side the incredibly serious nature of everything that's happening with those people involved in that thing. There's a real thing, and it's potentially horrible for what different things have happened to people, but we're strictly talking about Marvel's vampiric corporate POV. This is fucking disastrous for them. The fact that it's going to take this long before they can even make decisions on whether or not they want to keep him. They can't even be sure about it, because to drop him too early is to make it look like you don't have much faith, and you're sort of you're looking to just get things done and move things on and get things in place. But to drop him to wait until after the trials. Like, who knows even how much more damage that's going to do to trying to create storylines to make the movies to push them out, because that's like the whole thing of trying to remain relevant culturally. So,
and I imagine that again, the vampiric like suit sense that they've looked at stuff, DC's similar, like Warner Brothers similar situations with other actors in legal trouble.
They might be thinking just cut them out earlier. It's better than later, or just.
I mean, I guess the thing is that they're in a place of they haven't made up their mind yet. But I mean, every day that they don't make up their mind, they still have made up their mind, which is that he's still a part of it.
And yet he's not. He's still a part of it, but they're not shooting new scenes with him. So
isn't it crazy? It says Avengers: Kang Dynasty wasn't expected to begin shooting until early 2024. It's like fucking Kang Dynasty is going to get pushed so far.
Oh yeah,
like it was pushed so far.
I don't think that's coming out until 2027 at this point.
And that's the thing, man. If you look to if you made Endgame, it's like, when should the next Avengers be? It's like probably don't want to go longer than 4 years, maybe 5. That's already kind of pushing it. Because it's the big old like, let's collect back up, everyone join us. And that's, by the way, that's why I consider like the next Avengers to be a big old death knell for the MCU. Along with the Marvels is one because of how badly it's going to do. That would be one because it shows how much money they can't make anymore. Like, there's all these little like sort of flags to the world of how bad this is going, and hence
because
this article.
Unlike you've got Wakanda Forever. Yeah, that was the end of a phase, but it didn't feel like it.
No,
Avengers movies will feel like the end. They
feel like the cap off.
Yeah, those will like the public perception of those will be that. So, I mean, who knows what they're gonna do? I mean, will they get just postponed until they can get their shit together with characters that people care about? I mean, who knows? If I was them, I'd be like, guys, we gotta restructure from the ground up before we even think about another Avengers movie.
It can get so robotic that I imagine they're like, what can we reliably create? And it's like, Ant-Man is like, it's not pulling enough money. Another Doctor Strange? It's like, maybe, yeah. Maybe we do another Doctor Strange. Like, can we do that?
Maybe that'll fix our problems.
Because they already talked about, there's like rumors of how it's going to be very Doctor Strange centric, the Avengers films. You got Evil Strange and the multiverse and incursions, and Kang is going to be like poised against him. And there's no accident. It's because Strange was probably the most profitable, and they've got a really big actor attached to it, and they've got Sam Raimi is like that we can, because isn't it rumored that Sam Raimi's been offered to do the Avengers films?
Yes, it has been rumored, which is interesting.
Don't do it, Sam. Stay away.
No, he shouldn't do it. That would be a bad idea. He should
make your own shit, man. Get away from him.
Make your own shit.
No, it'd be me then,
right?
A studio sources notes that regardless of the actor's legal issues, Marvel already had considered moving away from a Majors-led phase because of the box office performance of Quantumania. Bullshit. I don't believe that for a second.
No way. Don't buy that.
Yeah.
That sounds like Cope, where they're like, we were thinking of recasting him anyway. Moving away from him.
To me, that sounds like the same Cope of, no, Aquaman 2 was always going to be a buddy comedy. Like, it wasn't going to have that much of Amber Heard as Mara in it. No, I always pitched it that way. It's like, yeah, all right, yeah.
You'd
sure.
have to have like Quantumania would have to do bad. You'd have to get a lot of specific like polling and stuff from people who said they didn't like him and didn't care about the character. And then maybe Loki would have to do really bad too, and you'd have to get the same messages. But I think that just when they get their minds to something, they're just full steam ahead on it.
The results of Quantumania not pulling the money means that we can't do solo Ant-Man films anymore. That doesn't mean we drop all of the Ant-Man characters.
Also,
no.
As someone's already pointed out in chat, the timeline doesn't make sense because Jonathan Majors' legal stuff started in March, and Quantumania came out in February. So I don't know about that. You know what I mean? What, unless they decided literally days before, all of his legal stuff started happening. You know what? That film didn't make enough money. Let's not do the Kang thing.
It doesn't make sense from that perspective, but I also just don't buy the idea that when Quantumania does badly, we can't possibly use Kang again then. It's like, that's not, you wouldn't have concluded that. You wouldn't, it's not like we'll never...
reflection on Ant-Man?
Yeah, like, I think so, but also, we're going to see Scott Lang again. Of course we are.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like we go, Quantumania didn't perform, so we're not going to ever have Ant-Man now.
Yeah,
it's like, no.
You'd have to get You'd have to get a lot of groups, like test groups and things like that, screening audiences very specifically and overwhelmingly saying that, yeah, Kang sucks.
Pretty much.
I think they were fully hyper invested in Majors, and then the legal stuff happened, and then they were like, oh,
Absolutely,
distance now.
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, we could see that. I mean, the whole reason we're having this conversation and reading these articles, and everyone's knows about it now, is because Disney is just like, it's they're full steam ahead on this stuff. Like they don't do course correction, they do course misdirection.
Oh.
Box office performance of Quantumania, which will struggle to make a profit. It gave people pause given that Quantumania didn't exactly land, the source says. On October 27th, Disney removed another Majors film, Searchlight's Magazine Dreams, from the release calendar. Yeah, there's so much... Like I said, it's so interesting to see where this dribbles out to. Like the... I really wanted to see the Assembled, but it was delayed significantly because they were likely recutting
and then when it comes out... it's so obvious that they had a section where they were probably talking about how great Jonathan Majors is as an actor, and instead it was just stock music, and as the cast, excluding him, was kind of sitting around and laughing. It was surreal.
It was he who must not be named.
Yeah.
He's being stricken for the records, like Stalin style.
I wouldn't be surprised, and that's the thing. They have to just swallow the bullet of, all right, we just gotta fucking recast him and go along with it.
Make a decision.
Rhodey style. The idea that they won't like be able to sort this out, for however long, like I feel like someone's got to get it done, move it forward eventually.
Well,
absolutely.
Unless there was actually a reason why. But presumably they could just drop him whenever they want. Like presumably it's not like he's tied in.
Oh, absolutely.
I assume that in the contracts and whatnot, they say like if you do something bad legally, we can remove.
Well, because that's what happened with wasn't it that Johnny Depp got dropped after the defamation trial in the UK where he lost.
Right.
It was like that day was the day that he got dropped because presumably it's like, okay, well now there's like a legal pretext.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think yeah.
All right.
Let's see. So I had scrolled. What's this?
You're on recasting Majors.
Recasting Majors is also an option, as Feige did when he replaced Terrence Howard in Iron Man 2 with Don Cheadle.
Just want to say quick, you can reference that, but that's nowhere near the same situation.
Nope, not even remotely comparable.
When I said recast Cassie earlier, people were like, they already did that. It's like...
Yeah, but no,
you don't understand.
Recasting someone who popped up briefly versus recasting someone who was full on, and then versus someone who is in many things and is said to be the villain for a whole phase. It's like these are all very different.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. In fact, Marvel isn't afraid to change direction, even after making splashy announcements. Armor Wars was first unveiled in a... I don't like that name, Armor Wars.
It's not great.
Yeah. Was first unveiled as a series and is now being developed as a feature, while the studio's push to adapt the comic book Inhumans into a feature film generated headlines, but is now dormant.
Oh yeah, that's right. They that was the plan, and then it became that show that nobody liked.
Yeah.
Yep. The now defunct Marvel Television mounted an Inhumans TV series in 2017 that ran for one season on ABC.
Yeah, I guess some relevant information is that Marvel Television was there was Marvel Studios and then there was Marvel Television. They were not the same. They didn't have the same leadership. They existed in different sort of realms, whereas now all of the shows are Marvel Studios productions. So like Daredevil, all the Netflix shows was Marvel Television. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Marvel Television. But
someone has linked a tweet from today.
Oh my god!
Actually, 10 minutes ago. Pre-sales for The Marvels are reportedly now pacing behind that of Black Adam and The Flash.
Really? Really? Oh my god!
This is sources from Deadline.
But that only makes sense.
That's
to me anyway.
It makes perfect sense, but at the same time,
it's god. Like, do you want to go... I mean, unironically, if we were told, do you want to go see The Marvels, do you want to go see The Flash? I'd be like, probably The Flash, I guess, yeah. Like, if I, out of, like, which one did you think... Nothing to do with your work, nothing to do with cultural conversations, just entertainment.
Probably
The Flash.
I mean,
knowing Batman's in it, right?
Yeah, that's not. And plus, Black Adam, not a good movie at all, but I don't know, I found it entertaining.
It's been a wild ride for Black Adam because it was,
Yeah.
everything coming up to it coming out and being like lackluster in terms of box office. But now in retrospect, it's like, well, I guess it
Well,
was,
it did better
but
than everything else that
yeah,
came out this year.
it's like, I mean,
it wasn't an abject failure; it was just a relative failure.
and fucking Dr. Fate was cool.
Yep. But hey, maybe the Marvels is going to change the hierarchy of the DC forever.
Could you imagine it makes $5 billion? We're all like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
it'd be so funny.
Still, there was one bright spot in 2023, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which became Marvel's biggest draw of the year with $845 million worldwide. The fact that it was directed by James Gunn, the guy now running rival DC studios, was lost on no one. I mean, yeah.
What everyone should mention. If they don't mention it, it's incredibly important to mention. It's why it felt different to the rest, and it's why it's kind of useless information in terms of
It's
like
an outlier.
Yeah.
It does
It's
seem
an
like
outlier.
yeah.
It succeeded despite the franchise it belonged to.
Yeah, but sorry,
it
by useless
clearly
information,
felt
what I
like
meant
its
is
own thing.
in favor of Marvel's uprising or rebirth or anything. It's like, no, there's nothing to do with that.
No. Nope, absolutely.
No, this is always going to be a James Gunn thing. Yeah.
What's else you know, Noob?
Quote, with Marvel, it used to be as close to a guarantee as you could get, says Paul Degarabedian, a box office analyst at Comscore. So, quote, so going all in on budgets made sense. Guardians 3 was a bit overlooked in how successful it was, but that had James Gunn and Chris Pratt, and I think star power is becoming more important. Then there was Quantumania with $476 million. Anything under $500 million is viewed as a disappointment, and these overreaching expectations are a result of so much success over the years.
That is so true and so important for people to remember. And it's not because I mean you can see with some other Disney stuff this year, it's like, oh yeah, 500 million. It's like, yeah, but when you spend $250 million,
They
it's
have
not
got
good enough.
to rein in the costs of these movies. There is some
Yeah.
rot at the core of their financials. There's just these movies should not be costing this kind of money. And if they are, then you need to seriously reevaluate what you're spending it on and just what you're doing. There's too many examples of movies that are 100 million and less in terms of their budgets, and they're great and they make a lot. So it's something, I don't know.
Yep.
Sure, a bunch of stuff they talk about at Marvel, but who knows what'll actually get done.
Well then.
Let's see. The key to reinvigorating Marvel may lie with the superhero arsenal that Disney acquired during its 2019 purchase of 21st Century Fox.
Or whatever you say.
Yeah. That deal brought several blue-chip heroes, such as the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, back under the studio's control. Already, fans are geeking out about next year's Deadpool 3, which unites Ryan Reynolds' Merc with a mouth with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and a reboot of Fantastic Four slated for 2025. Yeah, I'll believe it's out when it's in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll get it, but who knows what it'll fucking look like by the time it comes out.
What it'll look like and when.
And it's so funny too, right? Because of the story for X-Men Origins Wolverine, and these two are teaming back up for a movie that has the exact same fucking plagued problems. Like it's kind of, I don't know, it's a bit poetic. I get very curious.
Poetic. It rhymes, like George Lucas said.
Yeah, it does rhyme.